Chapter 330. If Chu Liyue didn't do it, what will you do? Yi asked in a low voice. The Empress was stumped. She couldn't think of any rebuttal and could only mutter softly. It must be her. It must be. Other than her, it can't be anyone else. Yi's head hurt. Jing, listen to me. I know you're anxious about Rongzhen's disappearance and so am I. But we can't do this. At this time we have to be careful. Otherwise, if we're not careful, we'll lose everything. The Empress gradually calmed down. What should we do? Should we just sit here and wait? Yi was silent for a while. I'll send someone to find out about Chu Liyue's situation and see if there's anything strange. The Empress's eyes lit up. Okay. Isn't Si Ting at Tianlu Academy too? I heard that they're classmates, so they must have some interactions. It's best to let him go. Yi was a little disgusted. He thought highly of Si Ting and had been grooming him as his successor. This wasn't something to be proud of. Based on Si Ting's personality, he would definitely be unwilling. Also, he wasn't willing to let Si Ting do this either. After the Qingjiao competition, Si Ting accumulated a lot of experience and has been focusing on cultivation. There's no need for him to go. Besides, it's just to find out some information. It's more suitable to let Si Yang go. He's also closer to Chu Liyue. The Empress disagreed. Si Yang? Would he be able to do it with his jumpy personality? Big brother, this is a small matter, but it's the most important. Big brother, you might not know Chu Liyue well, but she's very smart. If Si Yang goes, she'll probably realize that something is wrong. Si Ting is mature and cautious. It's better to let him go. Yi's face darkened and he didn't say anything. The Empress carefully glanced at him, leaned closer and pleaded in a soft voice, Brother Yi, please forgive me. She pleaded, Big brother, I know you dote on Si Ting the most and I don't want to trouble him because of this. But, there's no other way, right? If you're really unwilling, then I'll find her myself. I've troubled Big brother a lot all these years. I just hope that if anything happens in the future, you and the Si family won't be implicated. As she spoke, 2 streams of tears fell from her face. She was his sister after all, so Yi's heart ached for her. Seeing her in such a difficult position, he also felt bad. Then, Big brother, I'll take my leave first. As the Empress spoke, she wiped the tears off her face and got up to leave. Yi shook his head helplessly. Let Si Ting go. The Empress looked at him with surprise and gratitude, tears welling up in her eyes again. Thank you, big brother. Yi sighed and patted her shoulder. It hasn't been easy for you in the palace all these years. You've helped the Si family a lot. We are bound together for good or ill. This small matter was nothing. You've been out for long enough today. You should return to the palace as soon as possible. I'll let you know as soon as I have any news. The Empress thanked him a few more times before leaving. Prince Li's mansion. Rongxiu reclined on the bed with his eyes closed. He stretched out an arm that was riddled with scars. Some of them were so deep that bone could be seen. It was badly mangled and looked extremely terrifying. Umo half knelt by the bed and carefully helped him change his dressing. Seeing the wounds on his master's body, even though he was used to killing, he still felt terrified. He lifted the gauze. Because of the bleeding and pus, a large portion of the gauze had already stuck to the flesh. Umo took a sharp knife and carefully cut away the stuck part. However, some parts of the wound still ruptured unavoidably. Umo quickly looked up at his master and sighed in his heart. Based on his master's abilities, the collapse of Joyo Tower would definitely not pose any threat to him. The reason why he was so severely injured was obviously because his master had done it on purpose. It was obvious who he did it for. Master, how long do you plan to recuperate for this injury? Umo took off the gauze and hesitated in the few bottles at the side. Rongxiu said lightly, use the gray bottle. Umo paused. Master, the medicine in this bottle is not very effective for your injury. Why don't we use the white bottle? He didn't dare to ask his master to use the gold bottle, which was the best, so he could only settle for the second best. However, that was still much better than the gray one. Rongxiu ignored his words and asked instead, how's Yanqing doing? Umo immediately replied, after you entered Joyo Tower, Yanqing immediately went there. According to him, he seemed to have made some discoveries. He's on the way back now and should be back today. Rongxiu grunted lightly. It was impossible to tell if he was happy or angry. The room fell into silence again. Umo hesitated for a moment and said boldly, Master, I know that you don't want to recover too quickly and arouse suspicion, but you have to think about Miss Luyu, right? She knows that you got injured because of her and must feel guilty. Your injury doesn't seem to be getting better day by day. Won't her heart ache every time she sees it? Rong Xiu's fan-like eyelashes trembled slightly. Then he slowly opened his eyes and looked at Umo thoughtfully. His eyes were pure and deep, like the most brilliant and mysterious starry night. It was as if he could see through everything. Suddenly, a cluster of golden flames flashed in the depths of his eyes. Umo's heart skipped a beat. Master? Digression, I've been having nightmares these few days. I dreamed that I was scolded for not updating properly, and even beaten up. I'll try my best not to be beaten up tomorrow at midnight. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 331. That golden light quickly disappeared as if it had never appeared. However, Umo was sure that he had not seen wrongly. His heart trembled as he hurriedly lowered his eyes. Master Yu, Rong Xiu closed his eyes. After a while, he opened them again and regained his usual calmness. Continue. His thin lips gently spat out 2 words. Umo picked up the gray bottle and evenly sprinkled the powder inside on Rong Xiu's wound. The bitter smell of medicine wafted in the air. Umo carefully bandaged his wound with new gauze while feeling conflicted. After he finished treating Rong Xiu's wound and was about to put away the bottles of medicine, he finally could not help but say, Master, you haven't gone back for a long time. Do you want to take this chance to go back? Rong Xiu's expression was calm and he did not say anything. Umo knew that this was a rejection, so he could only leave respectfully. However, when he reached the door, he recalled the golden flame that flashed in Rong Xiu's eyes. He could not help but turn around and plead. Master, are you really not going to reconsider? If Miss Luyu finds out, what has Mu Qinghe done in the past 2 days? Rong Xiu suddenly asked. Umo thought carefully and shook his head. Nothing. Other than the day of the fire at Tianlu Academy's Jiuyo Tower, he has been staying in his residence for the rest of the time. He has not come out and has not seen anyone. Umo frowned as he spoke. Master, are you going to stay here and watch over Mu Qinghe? Who knows how long Mu Qinghe will stay here for? However, Master's situation does not allow for any delays. Rong Xiu pondered for a moment. You may leave. Carry on as usual. Yes. Umo responded but was still hesitant. Do you want to make arrangements for your return now? Rong Xiu shook his head. I know what to do. Yes. Liao Zhongshu didn't have to wait long before he saw Chu Luiyue walk out of the room. He asked in surprise, so fast? Chu Luiyue smiled. Yes, I found some clues. I'll go back and think about it. You should go back too. Only then was Liao Zhongshu relieved. He bid farewell to Chu Luiyue and left. Chu Luiyue returned to his residence alone. She went up to the 2nd floor, entered her room and locked the doors and windows before taking out the letter. At first glance, this letter was no different from an ordinary letter. However, the complicated Shen formation on it made Chu Luiyue understand that this was a letter that the other party had deliberately sent to target her. She took a deep breath. This Shen formation should be a level 5 Shen formation, but its difficulty could be considered one of the highest. Even a true level 5 mystic cultivator might not be able to successfully fill in the remaining mystic formations. The strength she had shown to the outside world was definitely not at this level, but the other party had sent such a letter. There was only one explanation. The other party firmly believed that she could solve this Shen formation and open this letter. Chu Liyue's hand that was holding the letter tightened slightly. In this world there were very few people who knew that she had such strength. Then, who was the person who was targeting her and knew her so well? Chu Liyue had a faint premonition. Perhaps the answer was hidden in this letter. She held her breath and concentrated, beginning to study the Shen formation on the letter. After a moment she picked up a brush from the table and dipped it in ink. Then, she lightly drew a line on the letter and began to fill in the Shen formation. Time passed by minute, and the Shen formation on the letter gradually became complete. Because she didn't add any force and only drew the Shen formation, Chu Liyue's process of drawing the Shen formation became much simpler. However, even so, this complicated Shen formation still took her a lot of effort. After about an hour, she finally finished drawing the entire Shen formation. When she finished the last stroke, the Shen formation on the letter suddenly lit up. Then, it transformed into countless rays of light and scattered in all directions. Chu Liyue waited for everything to dissipate before she finally opened the letter. She reached her hand inside intending to take out the letter. When she touched the letter, Chu Liyue's heart suddenly jumped. Then she almost couldn't wait and unbelievably pulled out the letter. It was a piece of high-quality Shen paper. The texture was soft, glossy like jade, and extremely delicate. However, Chu Liyue widened her eyes in shock. Because, she couldn't be more familiar with this touch. Her hands trembled slightly as she held up the letter. Sunlight shone in from the window and actually penetrated the letter, leaving sand shadows on the ground as bright as the moon. Chu Liyue's heart seemed to have been struck by something. This is the Xian moon paper that was specially used in the Tianling dynasty's palace. It was extremely precious. Not to mention the palace servants, even the ordinary concubines and unfavored princes and princesses were not qualified to use it. The reason why she was familiar with it was because she was very fond of it. Whether it was books, paintings or other things, she used the Xian moon paper the most. Countless guesses appeared in Chu Liyue's heart in an instant. This Xian moon paper was extremely precious and had always been specially provided in the Tianling dynasty. It was impossible for ordinary people to get their hands on it. To be able to get this Xian moon paper and specially send it to her, she fiercely closed her eyes, trying hard to calm herself down, and slowly opened the letter. On the soft and delicate paper, there was only one line of handwriting. Shengguanyu, long time no see. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 332. The sun was shining brightly, and a gentle breeze passed through the wooden window. The room was quiet and peaceful. However, Chu Liyue seemed to be frozen on the spot, unable to move at all. The blood in her body seemed to have frozen at this moment, and her cold limbs seemed to have gone numb. In her mind, it was as if someone had smashed a huge hammer. It was dull and painful. She held the piece of paper. It was light and thin, but it seemed to weigh 1,000 pounds. She only felt her vision go white, and every word on the paper was like a sharp knife that ruthlessly pierced her heart. She almost couldn't breathe. Shengguanyu, Shengguanyu. This name had been buried deep in her heart, and she didn't even want to mention it in her dreams. Now it had appeared clearly on a piece of moon rice paper. She had always thought that she had hidden it very well and had even deceived Chu Ning, who had been with the original body. However, she didn't expect that someone had already known about it. The other party clearly knew her biggest secret, but she didn't even know who the other party was. Chu Liyue felt dizzy. She bit the tip of her tongue hard, letting the sharp pain wake her up. She quickly looked around. After confirming that there was no one else around, she heaved a heavy sigh and looked at the letter carefully. There was only one sentence on the paper. Other than that, there was nothing else. Chu Liyue compared the handwriting of that sentence with the handwriting on the envelope and found that it was indeed written by the same person. If she had seen such strong and vigorous handwriting before, she would definitely remember it. Unfortunately, no matter if it was in her previous life or this life, none of the people she knew had such a handwriting. However, the other party obviously knew her and had a high status. Or rather, they were extremely powerful. Otherwise, they definitely wouldn't have been able to obtain the moon rice paper. Chu Liyue stared at the letter and fell into deep thought. Who could it be? Since her rebirth, she had been staying in country Yao Chen's imperial capital. This place was thousands of miles away from the Tianling dynasty, and she had no way of contacting anyone from the past. Moreover, after experiencing the inhumane torture in the imperial ancestral hall, she had already lost her trust in everything in the past. Even Mu Qinghe, whom she had never suspected, had betrayed her, let alone the others. Her rebirth was her biggest secret and also her biggest trump card. She originally thought that she could become stronger step by step, and then go back and take revenge on those people. Take back everything that belonged to him. But now that this letter had suddenly appeared, she suddenly realized that things were developing in a direction that she could not foresee. How have you been? How have you been? Chu Liyue murmured as countless faces flashed through his mind. Judging from his tone, he seemed to be quite familiar with her. However, she really couldn't figure out who the other party was. At this moment, she suddenly felt a strange movement in her dantian. Holding his breath and concentrating, the original spirit looked inside. Inside his dantian, the water droplet quietly floated. Directly below, within the heavenly square medicinal cauldron, a black-colored flame transformed into a legendary three-eyed eagle illusion. It was ferociously staring at the outside of the heavenly square medicinal cauldron. Dumpling? The two fiends were fighting with each other through the transparent heavenly square medicinal cauldron. Judging from the burnt fur on Dumpling's body, they had been fighting for a long time. Chu Liyue couldn't help but hold her forehead. Why are you fighting again? It hasn't even been 2 days since you came out of Jiuyou Tower, and you have already fought 5 times. Haven't you fought enough? Dumpling remained motionless as she stared at the legendary three-eyed eagle opposite her. Although the legendary three-eyed eagle was a divine beast, it didn't have a physical body now. Only a soul was left in the karmic fire, and its size was about the same as Dumpling's. The legendary three-eyed eagle's scarlet eyes were indifferent and cold. If it wasn't trapped in the heavenly square medicinal cauldron, it would have long rushed out and killed this reckless thing in front of it 1,000 times. No matter what, it was a renowned paragon back then. Now, it was reduced to fighting with a mere blood ferret. It was really shameless. Looking at the two fiends who were still at daggers drawn, Chu Liwei pondered for a moment, looked at Dumpling and said, "Dumpling, if you continue fighting, I won't stand up for you." Dumpling swung its tail and angrily pulled it up. Chu Liwei then saw that there was a burnt patch on it. "You're not angry because of this, are you?" Dumpling nodded fiercely. "That's it. Its beautiful fur had been destroyed. It had never suffered such grievances before. If it didn't get revenge for this, how could it continue living in this world?" Chu Liwei was speechless as she looked at its angry and self-righteous look. "Isn't this because you provoked it first?" Although she wasn't paying attention to the situation in her dantian, it didn't mean that she didn't know anything. Dumpling choked. A look of mockery flashed across the legendary three-eyed eagle's eyes. "A mere third-grade fiend. Its level isn't high, but it has many problems." Dumpling was instantly enraged. Chu Liwei glanced at the legendary three-eyed eagle indifferently. "You're a divine beast, but aren't you staying here and fighting with a mere third-grade fiend?" The legendary three-eyed eagle was stunned and felt extremely embarrassed. It flapped its wings fiercely. If it wasn't trapped by the heavenly square cauldron, it wouldn't have experienced such humiliation. Chu Liwei saw that the two fiends finally stopped fighting, but another question arose in her heart. Dumpling was indeed a third-grade blood ferret. Facing the legendary three-eyed eagle, it should be respectful and fearful. However, the current situation didn't seem to be the case at all. Dumpling didn't seem to be as respectful as other fiends towards fiends that were of a higher grade than itself. It was like this when it faced the black flying python in Wanling Mountain, and it was the same when it faced the legendary three-eyed eagle now. But the key was that the legendary three-eyed eagle was a divine beast. What kind of secret was Dumpling hiding? Chu Liwei looked at Dumpling and pondered for a while. She suddenly said, "I remember that third-grade blood ferrets have the chance to break through and increase their grade. Dumpling, what about you?" Dumpling was still hugging its tail pitifully as if it didn't care about this question. Chu Liwei thought for a while and felt that there was no point in asking these questions. Dumpling wanted to follow her, and she could feel that Dumpling liked and relied on her. Perhaps this was enough. As for those mysteries, perhaps they would be solved in the future. Chu Liwei opened her eyes and looked at the letter in her hands again. After a while, she put the letter away and placed it in her cosmic bag. The C family. Study room. Si Ting looked at Si Yi. His brows were slightly knitted on his cold face, and it was obvious that he didn't agree. "You're asking me to find Chu Liwei to ask about Rongzhen's whereabouts?" Si Yi coughed. "I know that you don't like to do these things, but this is very important. I can only rest assured if I leave it to you." Si Ting paused and said coldly, I'm not going. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 333. Si Yi had already expected Si Ting to reject him, so he wasn't surprised and patiently persuaded him. "Si Ting, I know that you have dealings with Si Yang and Chu Liwei. This isn't difficult for you." "Master, I can't follow your orders." Si Ting interrupted Si Yi, which was rare of him. Si Yi was stunned for a moment. It was only then that he realized that Si Ting was very resistant to this matter. But this doesn't just involve Rongzhen. It also involves the Empress and Rongjin. After all, the Empress is a member of the Si family. If anything happens to them, it will be a huge problem for the Si family. Si Ting glanced at Si Yi and calmly asked, "The Empress is the fourth princess. She should immediately inform His Majesty about her disappearance and get the Imperial Guards to look for her. Why would the Empress secretly let the Si family do this? Also, it somehow involves Chu Liwei?" He remembered that Rongzhen and Chu Liwei didn't interact much. The only time they met was at Crown Prince Rongjin's birthday banquet. That time, Rongzhen purposely humiliated Chu Liwei in front of everyone, but she was taught a lesson by Chu Liwei in the end. Perhaps Rongzhen hated Chu Liwei from then on. According to her personality, it wasn't surprising that she secretly attacked Chu Liwei after that. But now that she's missing, what does it have to do with Chu Liwei? Si Yi was at a loss for words. He couldn't tell Si Ting about Elder Meng's existence. But Si Ting was stubborn. If he wanted to get to the bottom of it, then, these things are very complicated. Anyway, even if it's for the Si family, what can you do by asking? Si Yi's head hurt. As long as you don't let Chu Liwei find out that you're asking about Rongzhen, she'll definitely know. Si Ting said resolutely. Chu Luiyue was smarter than expected. Many times even he couldn't tell what she was thinking. Master, I've been classmates with Chu Luiyue for a few months, so I have some understanding of her. If this matter really had something to do with her, then once I open my mouth she would definitely be immediately alarmed. On the other hand, if there's no relationship between them, then asking her out of the blue will only arouse her curiosity and suspicion. Therefore, no matter how one looked at it, it was useless to get any information from Chu Luiyue. Si Yi leaned back in his chair and fell into deep thought. He knew that Si Ting's words made sense. But other than that, what else could he do? Get someone else to go? He was really worried. Si Ting looked at him with a dark expression. Patriarch. Chu Luiyue has already been selected by Vice Admiral Mu. Do you really want to put the entire Si family in danger for the Empress and the Crown Prince? Si Yi was suddenly shocked. Mu Qinghe was resting in her room. Red Demon stood by the window and groomed its feathers from time to time. The wounds from the previous fight had already healed, but it still felt that it had affected its image, so it had been staying obediently for the time being. It wanted to wait until it was completely healed before going out. Once bitten, twice shy. I've taught you this lesson too many times. If you don't listen, you'll be the one who suffers in the end. Mu Qinghe glanced at Hong Yao and poured herself a cup of tea. Hong Yao pretended not to hear anything. Mu Qinghe looked at the rising white smoke without any expression on his face. You're only a 7th grade fiend now. How dare you fight with a divine beast? Hong Yao froze. It had not revealed anything from the beginning to the end. How did Mu Qinghe know? Mu Qinghe narrowed her eyes when she saw its reaction. It seems like it's true. It had been tricked. Hong Yao suddenly understood and was very annoyed. Mu Qinghe was just guessing and tricking it. Hong Yao glared at Mu Qinghe fiercely. It was always like this. It would betray its master sooner or later. Mu Qinghe picked up the teacup and rubbed it slowly. Divine beast. This place is indeed. His voice was very low and it was almost inaudible. Suddenly Hong Yao felt a familiar aura. Its eyes lit up as it flapped its wings and flew outside. Mu Qinghe looked up slightly and looked at the door with deep meaning. Chu Luiyue looked up slightly and looked at the house in front of her. This was Mu Qinghe's residence in the Imperial City. There were no guards outside the door, and even the streets beside it were deserted. She didn't meet anyone on her way here. Those who didn't know would find it strange if they came here. However, Mu Qinghe was the one living here, so everything made sense. In the Imperial City, there were countless people who wanted to visit Mu Qinghe in order to establish a relationship with him. However, nobody dared to do so. Even Emperor Jiawen didn't dare to disturb him, let alone others. She heard that Emperor Jiawen originally wanted to send a few people to serve Mu Qinghe, but he rejected them all. Hence, there wasn't a single servant inside or outside the house. Mu Qinghe lived here by himself. However, there was a transparent barrier outside the door. From afar, one wouldn't notice anything strange. However, once one got close, they would immediately feel a strong suppression. Chu Luiyue was thinking about how to knock on the door when a green figure suddenly flew out from the wall and went straight for her. Hong Yao. Chu Luiyue looked shocked, but she thought in her heart, Hong Yao's sensitive sense of smell is still the same as before. It can even tell that it's me from so far away. Hong Yao happily flew in front of Chu Luiyue. I was about to die from boredom these 2 days. I didn't expect Chu Luiyue to come today. Hong Yao, your master, creak. Before Chu Luiyue could finish her sentence, the door suddenly opened from the inside. An entrance appeared above the spirit formation. Hong Yao quickly flapped its wings, urging Chu Luiyue to hurry in. Chu Luiyue's lips curved up slightly as she walked in. Walking through the front yard and the corridor, Chu Luiyue finally came to a room. The door was open and Mu Qinghe was sitting inside drinking tea. Chu Luiyue was hesitating whether to speak or not when Mu Qinghe said without raising her head, "Just come in." Chu Luiyue followed Hong Yao in. "Greetings, Vice Admiral Mu." After the first time, it was much easier to bow to Mu Qinghe again. Only then did Mu Qinghe look up. "If you feel bored here, then you can go and focus on your cultivation." Chu Luiyue was stunned for a moment before realizing that these words were directed at Hong Yao. Red Demon rolled its eyes, unwilling to give up. It had heard this kind of words countless times. If it was in a good mood, it might listen to it. But now she was here. How could it be dismissed like this? Hong Yao landed next to Mu Qinghe's hand and drank tea from her teacup. Half of its head was almost buried in it. After drinking enough, it raised its head and shook its head violently. The tea splashed everywhere. Mu Qinghe gave it a warning look. Chu Luiyue suddenly said, "Vice Admiral Mu, I came here today to discuss something with you." Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 334. Mu Qinghe then looked at Chu Luiyue. His voice was as cold and indifferent as ever. Speak. Hong Yao knew when to stop. It immediately took the opportunity to run and hide behind the window. Chu Luiyue glanced at it from the corner of her eye and sighed in her heart. Hong Yao was really troublesome. It knew that Mu Qinghe hated it when people touched his tea, but it still dared to do so. It was really rare for it to survive until now. It was strange. Mu Qinghe came from a humble background. When he was young, he had to snatch rotten buns from beggars and did not have a good day. Later on, when he followed her, his conditions in all aspects improved a lot. However, he was not like other people who had risen from poverty and were passionate about those luxuries. Instead, he was wholeheartedly focused on cultivation and war. Except for one thing, tea. Even she did not know when he fell in love with tea. Not only did he like to drink tea, but he also liked to make tea. Chu Luiyue remembered that he had good tea brewing skills. Even the tea masters in the palace might not be comparable to him. She stopped thinking and looked at Mu Qinghe. She briefly told him her plan. So, I'm here this time to hope that you can approve it. As for the length of time I stay in Taiyan Academy, it's up to you. Mu Qinghe picked up another cup and poured a cup of tea. He looked at Chu Luiyue with a scrutinizing gaze. It seems like you're sure that I won't leave here in the short term. That's why you have the guts to make such a request? Chu Luiyue's smile did not change. Didn't you say before that you would stay here for a period of time? I don't know how long you're referring to, but I'm here to ask. After all, it's an extremely rare opportunity to borrow books from other academies' libraries for free. I don't want to miss it. Vice Admiral Mu, please understand. Mu Qinghe did not speak for a long time. Other than looking for a genius with a Daijing Yuan meridian, he did have other important things to do this time. It would definitely not end in 3 to 5 days. Chu Luiyue's request did not seem wrong. However, you can go if you want, but I have a question that you have to answer honestly. Chu Luiyue nodded. Vice Admiral Mu, please speak. Mu Qinghe stared at her. That day in Juyo Tower, did you get something? Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat. Then, her eyes widened slightly as if she was surprised and curious. What do you mean? Mu Qinghe didn't say anything. He just looked at her with a deep gaze as if he wanted to expose her lie. His cultivation level was extremely high, so the pressure on his body was also extremely strong. His piercingly cold gaze was almost tangible. If it were anyone else, they probably wouldn't be able to withstand such scrutiny. But Chu Luiyue was different. She had met Mu Qinghe when he was at his lowest. She had seen him at his most miserable and pitiful state. She had also given Mu Qinghe a chance to become the youngest deputy general of the Tianling dynasty. She had seen him in his most glorious state. Hence, Mu Qinghe's gaze was completely useless to her. She frowned slightly as if she was thinking. After a while, she shook her head. Vice Admiral Mu, I'm sorry. I really don't know what you're talking about. That day the situation was critical. Prince Li and I escaped with great difficulty. Not only did we not bring anything with us, but we also almost lost our lives there. What exactly do you want to ask? Mu Qinghe looked at the woman in front of him. Intelligent, quick-witted, and a genius. Her expression was so sincere that it even made him wonder if his initial guess was wrong. Chu Luiyue pursed her lips hesitantly. Then she asked softly in a probing tone. Vice Admiral Mu? Are you looking for something? Mu Qinghe's gaze sharpened. The aura on his body instantly surged, and it surged toward Chu Luiyue. Screech. Hong Yao let out a clear cry. A green flame instantly flew in front of Chu Luiyue. It transformed into a barrier. It blocked Mu Qinghe's coercion outside. The two forces fought crazily. Bang. The tea set beside Mu Qinghe's hand shattered. Even the entire set of tables and chairs had many cracks on them. Chu Luiyue frowned slightly. She was just asking a probing question. She didn't expect Mu Qinghe to have such a big reaction. This only proved that she was right. But, why did Mu Qinghe come all the way here? What exactly is he looking for? The forces of both sides gradually dissipated, leaving the entire room in a mess. Chu Luiyue glanced at the broken teacup on the ground. It seemed to be freshly soaked Jin Mei. In the past, Mu Qinghe never drank this kind of tea. She retracted her gaze. Vice Admiral Mu, did you misunderstand something? I just wanted to say that very few people set foot on the upper floors of Juyo Tower. Prince Li and I were able to come out safely from the 6th floor thanks to the things his mother left there. If you really want to find something, perhaps Prince Li will have some clues. The murderous intent in Mu Qinghe's eyes gradually faded. No need. As soon as he finished speaking, the room fell into a dead silence. Chu Luiyue felt that if this continued, the matter might not be settled. She could only cough to break the deadlock. Vice Admiral Mu, your tea spilled. Why don't I compensate you with a pot of tea? I happened to get a bottle of superior grade Jin Mei some time ago. Although it's definitely not good enough for you, but no need. Mu Qinghe interrupted her and paused for a moment. I'll give you 10 days. Chu Luiyue smiled happily. Thank you, Vice Admiral Mu. Although this person's temper became more and more unpredictable, she was still very happy that he was willing to agree to her request. Mu Qinghe looked at the smiling girl in front of him and was momentarily dazed. That pair of bright and pure black jade-like eyes were too similar. They were clearly two different faces, but when they smiled, the expression between their eyebrows was so similar. However, when he took a closer look, he felt that it wasn't the same. There were too many things hidden in Chu Luiyue's eyes. That was an expression that only someone who had experienced countless hardships would have. She was different. She was always noble, pure, and clean. Mu Qinghe averted his gaze without batting an eyelid. During this period of time, the number of times he had thought of her was simply too frequent. This was not a good thing. Go back. Remember, you only have 10 days. Chu Luiyue noticed that Mu Qinghe's mood seemed to have changed a little, but she knew that it was no good for her to stay, so she happily bowed and left. Hong Yao followed her to the door reluctantly. She had only been here for a short while and she was leaving. Moreover, according to what they said just now, didn't it mean that it would not see her for the remaining 10 days? Chu Luiyue walked to the boundary and looked back at Hong Yao, who was reluctant to leave. She leaned closer and whispered, "You're too young. I'll bring you a gift when I come back." Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 335. Hong Yao then cheered up again. Chu Luiyue stepped out of the barrier and left. Hong Yao watched as her figure disappeared. When it was sure that she had left, it suddenly let out a joyful cry. I finally have a present again. Hong Yao happily returned to the courtyard and saw Mu Qinghe cleaning up the broken teacup. Hong Yao was in a good mood, so it didn't plan to continue arguing with Mu Qinghe. However, it still couldn't help but go over and fly one round around Mu Qinghe. Mu Qinghe looked up and coldly glanced at Hong Yao. It seems like she knows how to coax you. Hong Yao proudly raised its head. Mu Qinghe said in a low voice, I won't help you in the future. I won't help her for your sake in the future. You're on your own now. Also, I know that you're so close to her because you think that she's similar to her. However, I'm warning you for the last time. It's hard to predict people's hearts in this world. If she knows this, she'll definitely think of ways to make use of you. Don't regret it then. After all, he was Hong Yao's master. How could he not guess Hong Yao's thoughts? From the first time he saw Chu Luiyue until now, there was only one reason why Hong Yao was so close to her. He could tolerate it once, but it didn't mean that he would let people take advantage of him. Hong Yao glanced at him faintly. Ah, stupid human. I wonder who's the one who'll really regret it then. Even though 10 days was relatively short, it already surprised Chu Luiyue. What made her even happier was that Mu Hongyu told her early the next morning that her mother had arrived in the imperial city. This took less time than she expected. The news of Princess Consort Ping Zhang's arrival in the imperial city quickly spread, and Emperor Jiawen specially sent people to welcome her. However, considering that Princess Consort Ping Zhang's health wasn't good, he didn't hold a palace banquet to welcome her. Mu Hongyu and Chu Luiyue went to Prince Ping Zhang's mansion in the imperial city together. I didn't know that your father had a special residence in the imperial city. Chu Luiyue followed Mu Hongyu into the strictly guarded Wang Fu and was somewhat surprised. Mu Hongyu giggled. Because my imperial father will come back to the imperial capital for 2 months every 3 years. Therefore, His Majesty specially approved a residence for my father. I came here once when I was a kid. I didn't hear you mention it before. Why didn't you stay here after you entered the academy? Why did you stay in the academy instead? Mu Hongyu made a face. Who wants to live here? With so many people, there were also many rules. It was not convenient at all. It's best to stay in the academy. Chu Luiyue thought about it and agreed. Not only was the academy free and convenient, it was also safe. With Mu Hongyu's personality, it was hard for her to imagine living here alone. The two of them walked inside. When he arrived at the backyard, a white-robed old man with white hair was already standing there waiting for him. Upon seeing the old man, Mu Hongyu was overjoyed and rushed forward. Grandpa Wu Shan. You're here too? The wrinkles on Wu Shan's face bloomed like a flower as he chuckled. Young princess, it's been a few months since we last met. This old man misses you dearly. Quick, tell this old man, has the young princess been crying in the past few months? Mu Hongyu couldn't help but pout. Grandpa Wu Shan, we haven't met for so long. Why are you talking about this the moment we meet? I'm already 16 years old. I've stopped crying long ago. Wu Shan's face revealed a trace of surprise. Young princess has already broken through to become a stage 4 warrior? Mu Hongyu wrinkled her nose proudly. Of course. Young princess has really grown up, and she's getting more and more outstanding. If His Highness and Her Highness knew about this, they would be very happy. Wu Shan sighed. Mu Hongyu hurriedly asked. By the way, how is mother now? The smile on Wu Shan's face froze and a trace of worry appeared. Young princess, you should go and see for yourself. Mu Hongyu's heart sank. Could it be that mother's condition is worse than I imagined? That's right. After all, she has been traveling day and night. Perhaps her condition has worsened. I'll go and take a look. Mu Hongyu said as she pulled Chu Luiwei into the house. However, Wu Shan suddenly blocked the two of them and swept his gaze across Chu Luiwei. Look at me. I forgot to introduce her. Grandpa Wu Shan, this is Chu Luiwei. It's all thanks to her that Vice Admiral Mu is willing to help this time. Wu Shan was shocked when he heard the name. He hurriedly took a step back and cupped his hands. So it's Miss Chu. Sorry for the disrespect. Although they had just arrived at the capital city, the name Chu Luiwei was very well known. I really don't know how to repay your kindness this time, Wu Shan said with a face of gratitude. Senior Wu Shan, you're too kind. Hongyu and I are friends, so this is what I should do. Chu Luiwei glanced at the anxious Mu Hongyu and smiled. If you don't mind, I would like to visit the princess consort with Hongyu. Is that okay? Of course. Of course. Please come in. The princess consort's condition was very serious, but no outsiders knew about it. Wu Shan and the rest were very vigilant along the way. If it were someone else, they would definitely not agree. However, this person was Chu Luiwei, so there was no problem. After all, without her help, the envoy of the Tianling dynasty would not agree to hire a celestial physician to treat the princess consort's illness. Chu Luiwei and Mu Hongyu quickly walked into the house together. Wu Shan stood outside and watched over them. The moment they entered the room, Chu Luiwei saw a woman lying on the bed. Chu Luiwei's heart skipped a beat. This must be Mu Hongyu's mother. Her eyes were closed and her face was pale. Her cheeks were sunken, and there was an aura of death between her brows. She looked very haggard. Mu Hongyu's eyes reddened as she rushed to the bedside. Mother. When the princess consort heard the voice, her eyeballs seemed to move and she slowly opened her eyes. Her eyes were dim, and she was exhausted as if she had exhausted all her energy. She looked at Mu Hongyu and reached out with difficulty to touch Mu Hongyu's face. She revealed a pale and weak smile as she said in a hoarse voice. Mu Hongyu's eyes instantly welled up with tears. She immediately lowered her head to wipe them away as if she did not want her mother to see her like this. However, as she held her mother's bony hand, she couldn't stop her tears from rolling down her cheeks. Mother. Why are you like this? Mu Hongyu had left home to study at Tianlu Academy for less than a year. Although her mother's health was not good in the past, she was not like this. The princess consort helped Mu Hongyu wipe her tears slowly, but she quickly lost her strength. Another old man in green standing by the bedside stroked his beard. Young princess, don't worry. Wait for the people from the Tianling dynasty to come. There will definitely be a way. Mu Hongyu knew that this was her only hope now, so she could only nod and swallow her tears. A clear female voice could be heard. May I take the princess consort's pulse first? Digression, 12 a.m. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 336. Everyone in the room looked at Chu Luiwei. Mu Hongyu naturally had no objections and nodded in agreement. Then she looked at Princess Consort Ping Jiang and said, Mother, this is Lu Yu. She's my best friend in Tianlu Academy. Vice Admiral Mu only agreed to help because of her help. Princess Consort Ping Jiang looked at Chu Luiwei with a loving gaze. Thank you so much, Mother. Lu Yu is also a celestial physician. You probably don't know, but she refined a pill during the Qingjiao competition a few days ago. In other words, she's a real celestial physician. Let her take a look at you. She might be able to help. Princess Consort Ping Jiang smiled and nodded. I'll listen to you. Just as Chu Luiwei was about to step forward, the green-clothed elder beside her suddenly said, Young princess, I'm afraid this isn't very appropriate. Chu Luiyue looked up slightly. Mu Hongyu was stunned. Grandfather Ji Chang, what do you mean? Ji Chang stroked his beard and said earnestly, don't worry. Young princess, I know you're thinking for the princess consort. However, I'm afraid Miss Chu won't be able to help with this matter. Mu Hongyu thought for a moment and asked, you don't believe me? Do you not trust Luyu? Of course not. Ji Chang shook his head. Miss Chu is very famous and we've all heard of her. To be able to form a pill at such a young age is enough to prove Miss Chu's shocking talent. However, the princess consort has been seriously ill for a long time. Even the top celestial physician in country Yao Chen can't do anything about it, let alone Miss Chu. Why don't we wait for the Tianling dynasty's celestial physician to come before we take a look? Mu Hongyu furrowed her brows in displeasure. Grandfather Ji Chang, I'm just asking Luyu to take my mother's pulse. It's not a big deal. Besides, the celestial physician from the Tianling dynasty hasn't arrived yet, so we can only wait. It won't hurt to let Luyu take a look. Aren't you being a little too cautious? Ji Chang looked a little troubled. Young princess, I didn't mean to stop you, but, Sai, you don't know. Before we came here, His Highness told us to keep the princess's condition a secret. We can't let anyone know about it, so you still don't trust Luyu? Mu Hongyu was really angry this time. She stood up and looked straight at Ji Chang with a solemn expression. Grandfather Ji Chang, Luyu has helped us so much. Why are you still so wary of her? If I can't even trust her, then there's no one I can trust in the capital. You're hurting my heart. Ji Chang didn't seem to expect Mu Hongyu to value Chu Luiyue so much. For a moment he was at a loss. But, His Highness, I'll talk to father about it. Besides, even if father is here, he won't be so unreasonable. Mu Hongyu didn't want to talk to him anymore. She turned to look at Chu Luiyue. Luyu, don't take it to heart. Come and take a look at my mother. Ji Chang was a little embarrassed and could only take a step back. Chu Luiyue was deep in thought. This Ji Chang seemed to be especially reluctant to let her touch the princess consort. She walked forward and put her fingers on the princess consort's wrist. Ji Chang looked over. Chu Luiyue's expression didn't change. After a while, she let go of her hand. Liu, how's my mother's condition? Can you see anything? Mu Hongyu asked anxiously. Chu Luiyue shook her head. The princess consort has been ill for many years and her body is extremely weak. But other than that, there's nothing I can do. Regret surfaced on Mu Hongyu's face. The celestial physician in the past also said the same thing. Moreover, she could clearly feel that her mother's condition was worse than before. Chu Luiyue patted her shoulder lightly. Don't worry, the celestial physician in the Tianling dynasty will definitely have a way. Mu Hongyu forced a smile. I hope so. Just as the atmosphere in the room became heavy, Wu Shan's voice suddenly came from outside. So it's Vice Admiral Mu. Sorry for not welcoming you, it's really disrespectful. Hearing the sound, the people in the room all looked outside. Chu Luiyue walked to the door and saw Mu Qinghe in the courtyard. Beside him stood a young man in blue. That man looked to be in his 20s and wore a blue brocade robe with a white jade belt around his waist, outlining his tall and smooth body. He was very tall. Mu Qinghe was a general and was already very tall and strong. But this man standing beside him was a head taller. But what was more eye-catching was that he had a pair of blue eyes. Those eyes were like the purest ice crystals, shining with a cold light. But there was a careless smile on his face, making him look like a demon that looked at the world with a cold smile. Chu Luiyue's heart seemed to have been hit by something. How could it be him? Wu Shan was standing in front of Mu Qinghe and Luyu, extremely nervous. I'm so sorry. We didn't know Vice Admiral Mu was coming today, so we didn't prepare at all. Wu Shan was secretly ashamed of himself. He was already so old and had seen so much, but he didn't expect to be so nervous in front of these two young men. Actually, he couldn't be blamed. It was mainly because the aura of Mu Qinghe and the young man in blue was too strong, and he couldn't ignore it at all. Just by standing there, he already felt an inexplicable pressure, and even his breathing became a little labored. Mu Qinghe didn't want to waste time and looked up to see Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue went forward in surprise. Vice Admiral Mu. I didn't expect you to come directly. Hongyu and I have just arrived, so please forgive us for not taking care of you well. As she spoke, she walked to Wu Shan. Senior Wu Shan, leave this to me. You can continue to guard the courtyard. Wu Shan instantly heaved a sigh of relief and felt grateful toward Chu Luiyue. Okay. I'll leave these two distinguished guests to you. Chu Luiyue nodded slightly. Wu Shan hurriedly retreated. It wasn't until he was 10 steps away that he carefully exhaled and calmed his wildly beating heart. The people of the Tianling dynasty were indeed extraordinary. The two of them looked so young, but their strength was far above his. Chu Liwei then looked at the young man in blue beside Mu Qinghe and asked curiously, "May I ask if this is the celestial physician you invited? How should I address him?" Before Mu Qinghe could speak, the young man in blue spoke first in a languid tone. "Jian Fengqi." He had a smile on his face and he looked very friendly and gentle. His blue eyes were even more alluring. However, Chu Liyue's heart was alarmed. Nothing good would come out of this man's smile every time. In the past she had many conflicts with him. She didn't know why Mu Qinghe was so close to him now. Chu Liyue thought about it, but he didn't expect that the person Mu Qinghe invited would be him. "Greetings, young Master Jian." Chu Liyue curtsied. Jian Fengqi suddenly leaned closer to Mu Qinghe and laughed softly. "Don't you think she looks like someone?" Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 337. Mu Qinghe glanced at him coldly with a hint of warning. Jian Fengqi didn't take it seriously and smiled flirtatiously. "Even I can see it. Can't you see it? Those eyes are really—" "Jian Fengqi." Mu Qinghe's voice sounded like it was mixed with ice shards. Jian Fengqi finally restrained himself and shrugged. "Okay, I won't say it." Although he was talking to Mu Qinghe, his eyes were fixed on Chu Liyue. To be precise, he was looking at her face. "May I know your name?" He was tall and handsome, and when his icy eyes stared at a person seriously, it was as if they could transform into a surging sea, bringing with them an ambiguous and affectionate feeling that made people sink into them. Chu Liyue couldn't remember how many girls he had won over with his looks. Everyone in the Tianling dynasty knew how flirtatious Jian Fengqi was, but there were still countless girls who flocked to him, just to beg him to look at them a little more. But he had always been in the midst of flowers and never touched a single leaf. Chu Liyue couldn't figure out how he got rid of those girls, and how they didn't complain about him and couldn't forget him. Chu Liyue tried her best to suppress the urge to punch the man in the face, and her lips curled into a perfect polite smile. "Chu Liyue." "Oh." Jian Fengqi's eyes lit up for a moment, and he glanced at Mu Qinghe meaningfully as he dragged out his words. "What a good name." Chu Liyue had always been too lazy to pay attention to him, but now that there was a great disparity between their statuses, she had to accept it. "Thank you for your compliment, young Master Jian. Liu can't thank you enough for coming all the way here to help." Jian Fengqi was still smiling, but there was a trace of surprise in his heart. Most women would blush and their hearts would race when they saw him. Even the worst would have a look of admiration in their eyes. But this girl in front of him had never changed her expression since she saw him. This is rare. No wonder he could persuade Mu Qinghe to ask for his help. If there wasn't a special reason, he didn't think that Mu Qinghe would be willing to spend so much effort to invite him over. Not at all. "It's my honor to have a beauty's request." Chu Liyue rolled her eyes in her heart. She thought that many things had changed after more than a year. But now, it seemed that Jian Fengqi's coquettishness was still very good. Then, "Vice Admiral Mu, young Master Jian, this way." Chu Liyue did not want to be entangled with him for too long, so she turned sideways and invited them into the house. "Just lead the way," said Lu Yu nodded. Chu Liyue didn't insist and took the lead. Looking at her back view, Jian Fengqi poked Mu Qinghe's arm and lowered his voice. "I think I know why you invited me over now." Mu Qinghe's expression was as cold as usual. She looked straight ahead and didn't intend to bother with Jian Fengqi. But Jian Fengqi wasn't bothered by her cold attitude. Instead, the smile on his face became even more arrogant. "I didn't say who she looked like just now. Why are you angry?" Mu Qinghe paused in her footsteps. "If you don't want the 5-colored origin stone, feel free to continue or go back now." The smile on Jian Fengqi's face froze. "I was just joking. Why are you so serious?" Okay. "I promise that I won't mention this again, okay?" As he spoke, he lifted his feet and followed her. He thought to himself that this person's temper was getting harder to please. Chu Liyue pretended not to hear what the two were saying. When they reached the door, Mu Hongyu and Ji Chang were already waiting there. Both of them were surprised to see Jian Fengqi so young. Ji Chang was fine, but Mu Hongyu had always been a straightforward person. "Can this person do it?" was written all over her face. Jian Fengqi looked at Mu Hongyu with great interest. "Miss, you don't seem to trust me very much?" Mu Hongyu didn't feel embarrassed and said frankly, "I think so." Jian Fengqi was waiting for Mu Hongyu to say a few polite words. He didn't expect her to admit it directly. The teasing words in his throat were suddenly choked. However, since you were invited by Vice Admiral Mu, you must be a very good celestial physician. Jian Fengqi felt a little better. He smiled lazily and wickedly. Miss, next time when you praise someone don't pause for too long. Mu Hongyu nodded obediently for the sake of the other party's background. However, she was thinking in her heart, why is this man smiling so strangely? Chu Luiyue gave a simple introduction to the few of them, then directly led the topic to the princess consort of Pingjiang. Vice Admiral Mu, young Master Jian, this is the princess consort of Pingjiang. She is also the person who hopes that young Master Jian can help this time. The princess consort of Pingjiang smiled weakly. I'm really sorry. Both of you have worked hard to come here, but I can't even get out of bed. Jian Fengqi narrowed his eyes slightly. The princess consort seems to have been poisoned. The princess consort of Pingjiang widened her eyes slightly. Young Master Jian is indeed amazing. You can guess that I've been poisoned without even taking my pulse. Jian Fengqi raised his eyebrows. If he couldn't even do this, then he would be too useless. Mu Hongyu looked excited. She quickly moved aside and took Jian Fengqi's pulse. Young Master Jian, please. As she spoke, she walked to Chu Liu's side and whispered. The people of the Tianling dynasty are indeed extraordinary. Celestial physician who has treated my mother in the past has never been able to tell that my mother has been poisoned without taking her pulse. Chu Liu nodded. Although Jian Fengqi wasn't a good person, he was still skilled. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been so presumptuous. Jian Fengqi took out a handkerchief and placed it on the princess consort's wrist before putting his long fingers on it. Mu Hongyu hesitated for a moment, but still couldn't help but add on. I originally thought that he wasn't a good person, but now it doesn't seem to be the case. Chu Luiyue and her looked at each other. She didn't know why, but she felt that Mu Hongyu's words just now seemed to have meant he wasn't a good person. However, seeing that Mu Hongyu wasn't infatuated with Jian Fengqi like other girls, she was greatly relieved. She didn't want Mu Hongyu to provoke this guy. Jian Fengqi raised his eyebrows slightly. It seemed that they didn't know that although their voices were very soft, he could still hear them clearly, right? Immediately, his expression froze. Everyone in the room was looking at him. Seeing the change in his expression, they all quieted down. Mu Hongyu couldn't hide her worry as she held Chu Liu's hand. Chu Liu gently patted the back of her hand. Princess consort Pingjiang lay weakly on the bed. Although her eyes were dim and lifeless, there was still a faint trace of hope. Chu Liu suddenly thought of something. Her gaze turned slightly and looked at Ji Chang, who was standing at the side. At this moment, his hands were crossed in front of him, and his eyes were fixed on Jian Fengqi. He seemed to be particularly nervous. Chu Liu could even see him licking his cracked lips, looking worried and tense. Jian Fengqi let go of her hand. Ji Chang was the first to speak. Young Master Jian, do you have a way to cure the princess consort's poison? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 338. Jian Fengqi pondered for a moment. The poison in the princess consort's body seems to be a mixture of several types, and they were administered at different times. Mu Hongyu exclaimed. How could this be? All this time, she had thought that the poison in her mother's body was caused by an accident many years ago. She never thought that, mother is what he said true. Mu Hongyu quickly looked at Princess Consort Pingjiang. Princess Consort Pingjiang's eyes flashed with bitterness and she smiled bleakly. That's right, Jian Fengqi added. If I'm not wrong, the Princess Consort's body should have suddenly deteriorated in the past 2 months, right? Princess Consort Pingjiang nodded. That's it. Jian Fengqi stood up. The first few types of poison in the Princess Consort's body had been buried in her body for many years, and had already seeped into her organs. But because they were not highly toxic, they did not cause too serious of a consequence. But recently, someone administered another type of poison, which triggered all the toxins in the Princess Consort's body at the same time. That's why she was defeated like a landslide, resulting in the current situation. Mu Hongyu looked as if she was struck by lightning, and she stared blankly at Jian Fengqi. Then, what should we do now? Can you get rid of all these poisons? Jian Fengqi frowned slightly, and he seemed to be in a difficult position. This is a difficult task. After all, these poisons were administered at different times, and they are of different types. To get rid of all of them, not only do we have to know what these poisons are, but we also have to avoid new problems during the detoxification process. If we're not careful, all our previous efforts will be wasted and even. Jian Fengqi paused. Even if he did not finish the rest of his sentence, everyone knew what he meant. Mu Hongyu was a little absent-minded. Could it be that even the celestial physician of the Tianling dynasty could not do anything? Ji Chang heaved a long sigh and his face was full of grief. Young Master Jian, please think of something. The prince and the princess consort are deeply in love, and have supported each other for many years. If the princess consort... Of course. Jian Fengqi suddenly interrupted Ji Chang, and the corner of his mouth curled into an evil smile. Ji Chang was stunned for a moment, and the sorrowful expression on his face instantly froze. You mean, this poison is very difficult to deal with, but I didn't say that I can't deal with it. Jian Fengqi's smile deepened. Everyone finally understood what Jian Fengqi meant. Chu Luiyue cursed in his heart. As expected, he was still the same. If he didn't speak like this, it would seem that he couldn't show how powerful he was. However, Jian Fengqi also noticed that something was wrong with Ji Chang. Don't worry, everyone. I will definitely clean up the princess consort's poison and let her recover completely. Chu Luiyue's gaze quickly swept across Ji Chang's face before he lowered his eyes. She clearly saw the shock and fear that flashed across Jian Fengqi's eyes when he heard him say that he could cure the princess consort of Pingjiang. It's not hard to understand the shock, but what's with the fear? The fact that he could escort Pingjiang Wangfei all the way to the imperial capital meant that Pingjiang Wangfei trusted him a lot. Moreover, from the way Mu Hongyu addressed him in Wushan, they were also very close to each other. It doesn't make sense that he would be afraid after knowing that Pingjiang Wangfei's body could be cured. Chu Luiyue recalled that when she wanted to check Pingjiang Wangfei's pulse, Ji Chang refused several times as if he was afraid of something. Perhaps he had a guilty conscience. Young Master Jian, is what you said true? Can you really cure my mother? Mu Hongyu didn't notice anything unusual, her mind was only filled with Jian Fengqi's words. Jian Fengqi looked at the young girl who rushed to him in a few steps, her almond-shaped eyes shining brightly. His heart skipped a beat and his smile deepened. Of course, I Jian Fengqi always keep my word. If he couldn't solve such a small problem, then he would have wasted all these years. Mu Hongyu was extremely excited. She pounced to the bedside and held Pingjiang Wangfei's hand. Mother, did you hear that? Your illness will be cured. Pingjiang Wangfei didn't have any extra strength at this time. She could only smile with a pale face and look at Mu Hongyu. Chu Luiyue said, Hong Yao, it seems that the Wangfei needs to rest. Let's go out and talk. Mu Hongyu nodded repeatedly. All right. Then, Mother, you rest here first. I'll come to see you later. Pingjiang Wangfei nodded reluctantly. I still have to thank young Master Jian and Vice Admiral Mu, and Luyu. She finally closed her eyes and rested after saying those words with great difficulty. Chu Luiyue and the others walked out. Mu Hongyu just stood up and saw a handkerchief on Pingjiang Wangfei's wrist. She picked up the handkerchief and shouted at Jian Fengqi, who had already walked to the door. Young Master Jian, your handkerchief. Jian Fengqi paused in his steps and turned around to take a look. Chu Luiyue's lips moved. She almost directly asked Mu Hongyu to throw the handkerchief away. Jian Fengqi had a problem. He was a celestial physician and often had to take people's pulse. However, every time he examined someone, he would spread a handkerchief like this time and never touch it with his own hands. The material of the handkerchief was extremely precious, but he would only use it once and throw it away. He had been like this since Chu Luiyue met him. She didn't know why. Other than that, he had many hobbies that were neither too big nor too small, and he was very persistent. Even when she was the Heavenly Fate Princess, she also felt that this man was very fussy. Unexpectedly, Jian Fengqi stared at Mu Hongyu and didn't ask her to throw the handkerchief away. Instead he laughed. Oh, I almost forgot. As he spoke, he walked towards Mu Hongyu. Chu Luiyue looked at him as if she had seen a ghost. What's wrong with him? Jian Fengqi seemed to have noticed something and tilted his head to look at her. Chu Luiyue immediately lowered her eyes and continued to walk towards the door. Jian Fengqi narrowed his eyes. He didn't know why, but he felt that Chu Luiyue seemed to dislike him. Even if she always had a polite smile on her face, he still felt that way. And this feeling was inexplicably familiar. He suppressed the thoughts in his heart and reached out to take the handkerchief from Mu Hongyu's hand. The two people's hands touched for a moment. However, he didn't seem to feel it. He bowed slightly with a smile on his face. There was a hint of elegance in his eyes. Thank you, Miss Mu. Mu Hongyu smiled brightly. Young Master Jian, you're welcome. If there's anything you need my help with in the future, just let me know. Jian Fengqi looked at her and raised his eyebrows slightly. This Mu Hongyu seems a little too innocent. If an ordinary woman was touched like this, even if she wasn't tempted, her face would turn red. However, Mu Hongyu didn't seem to have any reaction at all. Only then did he vaguely realize that the bright light in her almond-shaped eyes was indeed because of her mother's recovery, and not because of him. This made him feel a little conflicted. Why are these two women each weirder than the other? Chu Luiyue, who had walked out of the door, waved at Mu Hongyu. Hongyu. Digression? Why is it so long? Because I went to the hospital in between. My body is a little inflamed, but it's not serious. Love mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from love. Chapter 339. Mu Hongyu responded and immediately walked towards Chu Luiyue. She didn't even spare a glance for Jian Fengqi. Jian Fengqi was speechless. What was with this feeling of being ignored and despised? He looked down at the handkerchief and quietly grabbed it in his hand. When he turned around, his expression had already returned to normal. The few of them walked out, leaving only Ji Chang inside. Young princess, the princess consort is weak. Shall I stay here to take care of her? He said to Mu Hongyu. Mu Hongyu thought about it and was about to agree when Chu Luiyue suddenly squeezed her hand. Mu Hongyu's mind raced, and she immediately realized something. She hurriedly changed the words she was about to say. But you've been taking care of mother all this time. You must be tired. You should go and rest first. Ji Chang was stunned. Young princess, don't worry. I'm still in good health. As for the princess consort, His Highness entrusted everything to me and Wu Shan. We naturally don't dare to slack off. If the princess consort, Vice Admiral Mu and young Master Jian are here, not only is she safe, but even if something happens to the princess consort, they can immediately deal with it. Senior Ji Chang, don't worry too much. Chu Luiyue smiled. But, don't tell me you don't trust these two? Chu Luiyue said jokingly, but there was a hint of scrutiny in his eyes. I don't dare. Ji Chang's voice lowered. Then, I'll go and rest first. If there's any problem, I'll definitely rush over immediately. Young princess, don't worry too much. Mu Hongyu nodded. Go ahead. We'll be here. Ji Chang had no choice but to turn and leave. Under the pressure of Mu Qinghe and Jian Fengqi, he didn't even look back. When his figure finally disappeared from sight, Mu Hongyu couldn't help but look at Chu Luiyue. Luyu, did you deliberately send Grandpa Ji Chang away? Chu Luiyue asked. Don't you feel that something is wrong? Mu Hongyu thought about it carefully and murmured with uncertainty, I don't think so. But he didn't seem to want to leave just now. Liu, you might not know this, but Grandpa Ji Chang and Grandpa Wu Shan have been with Father since a long time ago. They have been secretly protecting Mother and me all these years. He's probably just worried. Chu Luiyue looked at her quietly. Mu Hongyu's voice gradually became softer, and her expression was somewhat shaken. Hongyu, don't tell me you didn't find it strange. Chu Luiyue said lightly. Mu Hongyu was a straightforward person and wasn't shrewd, but that didn't mean that she was stupid. On the contrary, she was very smart. It was only because she was too close to Ji Chang that she trusted him too much that she couldn't see it clearly for a moment. Mu Hongyu frowned. Of course she could tell that something was wrong. Grandpa Ji Chang seemed to be especially protective of Mother. In the beginning he wasn't willing to let Chu Luiyue take her pulse, and he wasn't willing to leave just now. More importantly, he didn't seem to be as happy as she thought he would be when it came to her mother's recovery. He had followed Father and Mother for so many years, and he had been running around for Mother's illness many times in the past. But now that there was hope, his reaction was a little strange. You mean? Mu Hongyu looked at Chu Luiyue with uncertainty. Chu Luiyue chuckled. Just look at the future. However, you have to remember one thing. In this world, no matter how close the person is to you, no matter how much you trust them, they can still betray you. When that time comes, you might not even know how you died. Mu Qinghe's body suddenly stiffened. Jian Fengqi glanced at Chu Luiyue. Interesting. Of all the people who heard this, it had to be Mu Qinghe. If he hadn't been sure that Chu Luiyue didn't use any disguise technique, he would have suspected that this was deliberately said for Mu Qinghe. That makes sense. Jian Fengqi clapped twice as if he agreed. You may know a person for a long time without understanding his true nature. Many things can't be seen from the surface, and sometimes misunderstandings can arise. Don't you think so, Miss Mu? Mu Hongyu blinked and suddenly realized something. This Jian Fengqi seemed to be talking about her. She coughed and finally felt a trace of awkwardness. That's true. Thank you, Luyu and young Master Jian. I will be more careful in the future. Chu Luiyue looked at Jian Fengqi with a natural expression. Young Master Jian, I wonder, How do you plan to treat the princess? No matter what kind of medicine you need, we will definitely get it. Jian Fengqi said leisurely, there are several kinds of poison in her body. It is impossible to remove them all at once. Moreover, her body can't withstand such a heavy dose of medicine. We can only make a decoction and let her take it first and then let her take the antidote pill. How long will it take? Jian Fengqi raised a finger. 1 day is enough. Mu Hongyu was a little shocked. 1 day is enough? This day refers to the day I need to make the decoction and pill, not to let her recover completely. After that, she will need to take the decoction for a month to completely remove the remaining poison. But that is very simple. You just need to find someone to make the decoction according to my prescription. Chu Liwei thought to herself, as expected. Jian Fengqi had always only taken care of the most important step when treating patients. He was always too lazy to do the rest. He always felt that it was a waste of his talent and energy to do those things. But it was already very good that he was willing to do this step. I heard that Miss Chu is also a celestial physician? And you can already make pills now? Jian Fengqi asked with great interest. Chu Liwei nodded. It's just luck. You are only 14 this year? Although you are not as good as, but you are not bad. No wonder Mu Qinghe was willing to help you. Chu Liwei smiled very modestly. Jian Fengqi felt more and more depressed. This Chu Liwei seemed to be doing everything well, but the emotions in her eyes did not fluctuate. It was as if no matter what he said, it would not affect her. He turned his gaze slightly. Mu Hongyu was staring at the void. Her eyes were wandering, obviously thinking about something. He lost most of his interest and lazily said to Mu Qinghe, I will be refining pills here today. Help me guard. Mu Qinghe said coldly. Impossible. Because there was no need for that. Although Jian Fengqi specialized in celestial physician, his mystic master level was not low. Even if there were any accidents here, he alone would be more than enough to deal with it. Jian Fengqi had already expected this answer, so he did not mind and only shrugged. Then I will go by myself. With that, he walked to another room alone. The moment he opened the door, he waved his sleeve and a faint blue barrier appeared behind him. As for his figure, it was immediately concealed. He stepped into the room. At the same time, a cluster of flames suddenly rose from his hand. The square handkerchief instantly dissipated. Digression, small ailments can really kill. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience from LoveNet. Chapter 340. After settling Mu Hongyu's matter, Chu Liwei planned to leave. Mu Hongyu was a little surprised. You're leaving now? Chu Liwei glanced at Mu Qinghe and smiled. Time is of the essence, so I have to leave quickly. But don't worry, since Vice Admiral Mu and young Master Jian have agreed to help, they will definitely take care of it. If you need any herbs, you can go to Zhenbao Pavilion to look for Second Master Yan. Put all the expenses on my tab. When I return, I will look for him myself. Mu Hongyu shook her head resolutely. No way. You have already helped me a lot, how can I let you spend more? Chu Liwei thought about it and didn't insist. Then tell him to give me face and ask him to help you. He will help you gather the herbs you need. The poison in Princess Consort Pingzhang's body was indeed difficult to detoxify, but with Jian Fengqi's strength, it wasn't a problem. It was just that he might need a few special herbs. It might not be easy to find them in the capital, but Zhenbao Pavilion would definitely have them. If Mu Hongyu went by herself, Second Master Yan might not be willing to take them out. That was why she asked Mu Hongyu to mention herself. In this way, Second Master Yan would most likely be willing to help. Chu Liwei didn't tell Mu Hongyu the details. But Mu Hongyu was extremely intelligent. She had already guessed something and wanted to say a lot of things, but when they reached her mouth they seemed to be stuck. In the end she only said one sentence. Liu, thank you. Chu Liwei nodded. Although she didn't get along with Jian Fengqi and didn't like him, he was indeed a man of his words. If he said that he would refine pills here to help Princess Consort Pingzhang, then he would definitely do it. Mu Hongyu's face was full of reluctance. Chu Liwei wanted to remind her to be careful of Jian Fengqi, but she felt that it was unnecessary. Mu Hongyu was an iron tree and would only be Jian Fengqi's nemesis. Chu Liwei looked at Mu Qinghe and asked with a smile, Vice Admiral Mu, do you want to stay here or? Mu Qinghe didn't say anything and left. Mu Hongyu leaned in and whispered. Lu, don't you think Vice Admiral Mu's expression is a little bit bad? Chu Liwei lightly said, Oh? I don't think so. Really? Just now, for some reason his expression suddenly changed. Although he didn't expression of his expression but, Mu Hongyu frowned and couldn't think of how to describe it. In short, he just felt bad as if he thought of something bad. I haven't seen his expression like that. Chu Luiyue smiled faintly. I didn't notice. If possible, she wanted to chase after him and ask him face to face what was wrong. Was he upset? Or embarrassed? All she did was say betrayal. What was he thinking? In the past year or so, when had he ever thought about anything related to her? Chu Luiyue took a deep breath. She suddenly wanted to know what expression Mu Qinghe would have if he knew that she was her? And those people, Luyu? Mu Hongyu suddenly felt that Chu Luiyue's aura had turned cold, and it was shrouded in a strong sense of loneliness and despair. She felt uneasy and hurriedly spoke. Chu Luiyue came back to her senses and saw her worried face. Are you okay? The aura on Chu Luiyue's body quickly dissipated, and a faint smile appeared on her lips. I'm fine. Those people should be the ones who are not fine. Mu Qinghe returned to his house. It was rare for him to be in a trance, and his heart felt like it was blocked by something. It was very uncomfortable. He closed his eyes and tried to calm himself down, but Chu Luiyue's words kept echoing in his mind like the most profound curse. In this world, no matter how close the person is to you, no matter how much you trust them, there is a possibility that they will betray you. When that time comes, you may not even know how you died. The woman's clear and gentle voice rang in his ears again and again. This is not right. This is not right. Mu Qinghe barely found a trace of rationality. He sat on the chair and habitually wanted to make himself a cup of tea. Every time he was upset, he would do this to calm himself down. However, when he poured the tea, he stared at the teacup and could not help but think of something. Everyone thought that he loved tea, but in fact that was not the case. It was just that making tea could always calm him down. In the past, a burning pain came and he immediately woke up. Only then did he realize that because he was absent-minded, the hot tea had spilled on his hand. He closed his eyes fiercely and angrily swept the tea set to the ground. Crash! A crisp cracking sound echoed in the room, making it seem especially empty. Hong Yao, who was standing on the windowsill, looked back at him and lazily buried its head in its wings. A sharp pain suddenly came from his heart. Mu Qinghe's expression changed. He suddenly covered his chest with one hand and gasped for breath. Immediately, he took out a diamond-shaped bronze mirror with difficulty. Hong Yao did not move, but its body tensed up. The next moment, a dazzling light suddenly flashed on the bronze mirror. In the room, an invisible pressure suddenly descended. On the bronze mirror, the light gradually dissipated, and a scarlet sea appeared. A voice came out from it. Mu Qinghe, it's been so long. Why haven't you made any progress on what I asked you to do? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 341. It was a young man's voice. It was low and indifferent, but there was a hint of coldness in it that made one fearful. Mu Qinghe endured the pain in his heart and gritted his teeth. Don't worry, master. I'll do it as soon as possible. You don't have much time left. The seawater in the bronze mirror seemed to be rippling, and the thick smell of blood was suffocating. Everyone else thinks that you went to look for the Daijing Yuan meridian, but this reason can't be delayed for too long. If you can't do it as soon as possible, then you don't have to come back in the future. Because of the pain, Mu Qinghe's lips turned even paler. I understand. The blood-red seawater gradually dissipated, and a white light enveloped it. After a while, the bronze mirror returned to normal. Mu Qinghe then felt that the pain in his body seemed to have lessened. He closed his eyes, put away the bronze mirror, and leaned against the chair dejectedly. Hong Yao, who was standing by the window, suddenly flew over and landed on his shoulder. Mu Qinghe opened his eyes and glanced at it. Hong Yao inched closer and rubbed against his face. Mu Qinghe was silent for a long time before saying softly, "Don't worry. It won't take long." Chu Luiyue returned to the academy and told Yi Zhiding about her plans to go to Taiyan Academy. Although Yi Zhiding was reluctant, he knew that this was an excellent opportunity. It would be a pity to give it up. In the end, he decided to send Chu Luiyue to Taiyan Academy personally. If it weren't for the fact that the academy still had to deal with Jiuyou Tower, he even wanted to go there and accompany Chu Luiyue before bringing her back. Chu Luiyue repeatedly said that she would only stay there for 10 days and would be back soon. Yi Zhiding was finally relieved. The master and disciple pair packed up and headed there together. Country Xingluo Taiyan Academy. After the Qingjiao competition ended, Cheng Han and the elders had already brought the students back. Because they didn't get good results, the atmosphere in the entire academy was heavy and stifling. Since Heng Jingshua had used the red blood goo during the Qing Jiao competition, the other two academies had also sent their elders to Taiyan Academy to investigate. Everyone who had dealings with Heng Jingshua was investigated. Taiyan Academy had never experienced something like this before. Naturally, they felt extremely embarrassed this time and everyone was panicking. Who knew what kind of people Heng Jingshua had killed before he died? Even if it wasn't red blood goo, it could be some other poison. In short, the entire academy was in a mess and Cheng Han was also in a terrible fix. He even handed the herb mountain, which he had always meticulously taken care of, to Situ Xingqian. The so-called herb mountain was actually one of the many mountains behind Taiyan Academy. It was only because there were all kinds of precious herbs growing on it that it was called the herb mountain. However, even though the herb mountain was in Taiyan Academy, it belonged to Cheng Han. Thus, not to mention the students, even the elders in the academy did not have the right to approach the herb mountain. Situ Xingqian stayed on the herbal mountain for 2 days and realized that something was missing, so she wanted to go back to take it. She walked down the mountain, and when she reached the foot of the mountain, she saw a few familiar figures not far away. They were a few young men and women. Even though they were all wearing the academy's uniform, Situ Xingqian still recognized them at one glance because she had always been on good terms with them. She was about to go up and greet them when she heard her name. "Why haven't I seen Xingqian these past 2 days?" asked one of the young men. Situ Xingqian's lips moved, but before she could speak, she heard another young girl laugh. How can she still have the face to come out now? Situ Xingqian's body suddenly froze as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over her head. Almost subconsciously, she took 2 steps back and hid behind a tree. "Xiaoyun, aren't you going overboard with your words? Xingqian didn't do anything wrong. How can you say that about her?" The young man seemed a little angry. I'm going overboard? Who doesn't know that she won first place in the Celestial Physician competition because of Chu Liuyue's pills? Luckily, I didn't go this time. If not, it would have been so embarrassing. I really don't know how she still has the face to come back to the academy, said the other girl with a mocking smile. That's right. I heard them say that Chu Liyue didn't even touch her back then. She failed because she wasn't capable enough. In the end, she actually pushed the blame to Chu Liyue, who knew that he would really succeed. He even helped her win first place. If it were me, I wouldn't dare to ask for first place. The young man was so angry that his face flushed red. But Xingqian's talent and abilities are also very good. Who can compare to her when you're talking about her here? Of course we can't compare to her, so we've always listened to her. But this time she embarrassed the entire academy. Can't we be a little unhappy? Zhongling, we know that you like her, but why don't you think about it? Has she ever looked you in the eye? The young man choked and couldn't say anything. Situ Xingqian's standards are very high. So many young talents have proposed to her, but she didn't like any of them. Great, now her reputation is half ruined. Let's see if so many people still like her. Situ Xingqian was so angry that her entire body trembled, and her fingernails dug deep into her palms. Hadn't she suffered enough humiliation during this period of time? I didn't expect these people to talk about her like this. Countless people in Taiyan Academy and even the entire country Xingluo probably think this way. Just as she was thinking of how to deal with these people, she heard one of the girls say, "Oh, right. I heard that Chu Liyue arrived at our academy today." Digression, I feel better after taking the pills. I don't know if it's the side effects, but I feel nauseous the whole morning. Chapter 342. Situ Xingqian knitted her brows. Yeah. I think Tianlu Academy's director, Elder Yi, personally escorted her here. She should have reached the library by now, right? Wasn't she chosen by the Tianling dynasty's envoy? Why is she still here? Who knows? But since she's here, she must have been allowed, right? Have you heard that she lacked a Yuan meridian since she was young? She was born a good-for-nothing, but she suddenly became a genius a few months ago? I really don't know what kind of person Chu Liyue is. She's a genius, but it's a pity that she's engaged to country Yao Chen's Prince Li. That's a medicine pot. I heard that Prince Li is very handsome. Maybe someone likes him? Ah. The few figures gradually disappeared, and their voices gradually disappeared. Situ Xingqian remained silent for a long time, and she even stood until her legs turned numb. She realized that she really couldn't accept everything that had happened. No matter if it was the Qing Jiao competition or the engagement between Rong Xiu and Chu Liyue, she pondered for a long time before turning around and returning to the herb mountain. Halfway up the mountain there were a few wooden houses. One of them was specially for her to rest. She entered the house, locked the door, and sat in front of the study table. The rich herbal fragrance filled her nose. This smell always calmed her down in the past, but it only reminded her of that humiliating day now. She sat quietly for a while and took out a letter. This letter was from Rongjin. Before she left the imperial city, Rongjin secretly sent someone to deliver this letter. However, her thoughts were all on Rongxiu back then, so she didn't open it. Now, she stared at the letter for a while before opening it without hesitation. The last rays of the setting sun shone in through the window and dragged Situ Xingqian's shadow very long. A ripple suddenly appeared in the air. A figure walked out, and it was elder Lian Ning. Eldest princess. A low and hoarse voice sounded in the room. Situ Xingqian then recovered her senses and shifted her gaze away from the letter. She subconsciously put it away before looking at elder Lian Ning. Situ Xingqian saw that it was him and heaved a sigh of relief. However, her eyes were still filled with shock. Elder Lian Ning sensed that something was wrong with her and couldn't help but ask. Eldest princess, what happened to you? His gaze swept past the letter in Situ Xingqian's hands, and his expression froze. This is... When you went to investigate Chu Luiyue, did you find anything? Situ Xingqian interrupted elder Lian Ning and asked. Even elder Ning did not continue to delve into the letter. He only bowed slightly. We found two things. Firstly, on the 10th of July, Chu Xianmin sent someone to assassinate Chu Luiyue. Those people took Chu Luiyue out of the imperial capital and wanted to kill her in the forest. However, on that day Chu Luiyue did not die. Instead, he returned safely to the Chu family. Situ Xingqian knitted her brows. She had also heard about Chu Xianmin's incident. It was normal for her to secretly kill Chu Luiyue in order to become the crown princess. You think there's something wrong with this? Of course. Your Highness, don't forget that Chu Luiyue was still a good-for-nothing with a damaged Yuan meridian back then. As for the people Chu Xianmin sent, according to my investigation, one of them was a Stage 3 warrior. Situ Xingqian was stunned. Even though a Stage 3 warrior was not considered strong, it was not difficult for him to deal with a girl who had no cultivation. If Chu Luiyue returned alive, then, what about the other three people? They're dead. A strange smile appeared on elder Lian Ning's face. Also, it's the kind where no one knows if they're alive or dead. As the three people's identities were ordinary, and Chu Xianmin was afraid of being exposed, she purposely suppressed this matter. Hence, their disappearance did not attract anyone's attention. Coincidentally, Chu Luiyue underwent a drastic change from that day onward. After returning to the Chu family, she bought many herbs from Zhenbao Pavilion. Not long after, she was admitted to Tianlu Academy. Everyone knew what happened after that. Many guesses flashed across Situ Xingqian's mind. She hurriedly asked, what about the second matter? The second matter is coincidentally related to that forest. You probably don't know that country Yao Chen's fourth princess, Rongzhen, has gone missing. Situ Xingqian knew about Rongzhen, but they did not interact much, so she did not have a deep impression of her. Didn't her pearl of essence shatter and she's been recuperating in the palace? Why did she suddenly go missing? Also, there doesn't seem to be any news about this. Even though she returned to Taiyan Academy, she did not cut off contact with the outside world. If Rongzhen really went missing, such a big matter should have spread. Because Rongzhen ran out on her own. He had been secretly investigating Chu Luiyue all this time and did not expect to find out something. That day, Chu Luiyue was forcefully taken away from Tianlu Academy by a Stage 5 warrior. I hid my aura and followed them all the way. In the end, I discovered that they went to that forest. I did not follow them in, but not long after, Chu Luiyue came out. After that, people started secretly searching for Rongzhen's whereabouts in the imperial city. As long as all these things were connected, it was not hard to imagine what happened that day. Situ Xingqian was shocked and only spoke after a while. That means that Chu Luiyue killed Rongzhen? Elder Lian Ning pondered for a moment. That might not be the case, but after she left, I went into that forest to search, but I didn't find any traces. As for the Empress, she still doesn't dare to make a big fuss about it. Situ Xingqian's eyes sparkled as she softly muttered, that's so. In that case, Chu Luiyue's actions are really secretive. But there's no such thing as an absolute secret in this world. She probably didn't expect that the things she did were already known by others. What a joke. She has both fame and fortune now, and she even came to our academy's library. Eldest princess, what do you plan to do? Asked elder Lian Ning. Rongzhen must have another reason for targeting Chu Luiyue. What do you think? Rong Zhen was doted on in the past. Even if her pearl of essence shattered and she became a useless person, she was still the honorable fourth princess. When did other people have the right to decide her life and death? There hasn't been any news from country Yao Chen, so it's obvious that Emperor Jiawen doesn't know about this. That was his daughter that he doted on the most. If he knew about this, I really don't know how sad he would be, said Situ Xingqian slowly with a tinge of pity on her face. However, her eyes flashed with a cold and vicious light that disappeared in an instant. You're saying, Elder Lian Ning, it's been hard on you during this period. Leave the rest to me. Situ Xingqian took out a pen and paper. I'll tell this to the people who should know about it. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 343. Taiyan Academy. Chu Luiyue raised her head slightly and looked at the 5-story library in front of her. The golden words on the signboard shone brightly under the sunlight. This is the library. Elder Emote Song was standing beside Chu Luiyue. Although he did not like Chu Luiyue, Qinghan did not want to see her, so he sent him. 2 young men in academy uniforms standing at the entrance bowed respectfully when they saw the 2 of them. Greetings, Elder Emote Song. Elder Emote Song nodded and looked at Chu Luiyue coldly. For a period of time from now on, you can borrow any of the books here. Come in with me. Chu Luiyue did not mind his attitude and followed him in. As soon as they entered, Chu Luiyue saw that the walls were filled with all kinds of books. There were rows of shelves in the middle and they were also filled with books. She quickly scanned the place. Elder Emote Song stopped in his tracks and turned to look at Chu Luiyue. However, he did not see the shock on her face. He coughed and emphasized, this is the first floor. There are tens of thousands of books related to cultivation on the first floor. Chu Luiyue nodded calmly. Elder Emote Song was even more displeased. The collection in Taiyan Academy's library was as vast as the sea. It was rare for an ordinary family to have a few books on martial techniques. Even the aristocratic families would only have a few hundred books at most. However, they had tens of thousands of books here. Chu Luiyue did not react at all after hearing his words. This made Elder Emote Song very aggrieved. He could not help but sneer secretly. She was just pretending. I heard that Tianlu Academy has a lot of books too. Although it's not as good as ours, there should be at least a few thousand books, right? He asked casually. Chu Luiyue nodded again. Yes. Many of the books here are not available in our academy. Elder Emote Song laughed proudly. Just as he was about to say something, Chu Luiyue continued. Master said that although the academy is big, he would rather leave it empty than leave it for trash. Elder Emote Song almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Trash. Did Chu Luiyue know what he was saying? You're saying these are trash. Chu Luiyue smiled. Please don't misunderstand. That's not what I meant. I'm just saying that a part of this place is you. Elder Emote Song suppressed the anger in his heart and shouted in a deep voice. Chu Luiyue, you better be polite. If you continue to speak rudely, we'll chase you out even if you get first place in the Qingjiao competition. Chu Luiyue looked at him sincerely. Elder Emote Song, you're overthinking things. I'm not being disrespectful to your academy, but many of the books here are indeed not worth collecting. As she spoke, she walked to the side and casually picked up a book. Tiger Wolf Fist, Intermediate Yellow Grade. The martial techniques that warriors cultivate are divided into 4 levels: Heaven, Earth, Black, and Yellow. Each level is further divided into upper, intermediate, and lower levels. Yellow is the lowest level. Moreover, it's only an intermediate level, so it's not worth mentioning. Normally, martial techniques of this level are meant for Stage 2 warriors, right? Chu Luiyue's lips curled up. But our academy only accepts warriors who are Stage 3 and above. Thus, our academy doesn't have any books like this. Elder Emote Song was speechless. Their academy recruited more students than Tianlu Academy, so their standards were naturally not as high as Tianlu Academy's. There were still many Stage 2 warriors in Taiyan Academy. Apart from that, they were passionate about collecting all kinds of books. They had the most books among the 3 academies and they were proud of it. Why did it sound so cheap when it came from Chu Luiyue's mouth? What do you know? It's not only high-grade martial techniques that are worth collecting. Taiyan Academy's book collection is all-encompassing. It can be described as complete. Chu Luiyue smiled but did not say anything. If this little library could be considered as complete, then she really didn't know how to describe her private study room in her previous life. Seeing Chu Luiyue's smile, Elder Emote Song somehow felt even more uncomfortable. Chu Luiyue did not say anything, but he felt inexplicably embarrassed. This is only the first floor. You won't say that when you see the books upstairs. With a flick of his sleeve, he began to walk up the stairs. Chu Luiyue raised his brows slightly. I hope so. Elder Emotsang stopped in his tracks. I shouldn't have come if I knew this would happen. Chu Luiyue can anger someone to death with just one mouth. She better not be too presumptuous during this period. Otherwise I'll definitely teach her a lesson. The two of them went up to the second floor. The space here was as big as the first floor, but there were fewer books here. Instead, there were some glowing balls of light. These balls of light contain martial arts techniques as well. However, their levels are much higher than the ones below. Elder Emotsang's confidence was boosted a little. I don't mind telling you that there are many lost copies here. However, it's up to you whether you can open them or not. The balls of light were corresponding barriers. The higher the level of the item, the stronger the barrier's defensive power. Based on Chu Luiyue's strength, he might not even be able to open a profound-level martial arts technique, let alone others. Chu Luiyue asked in return. Do you mean that I can see all of these? Elder Emotsang sneered. As long as you can do it, it's up to you. Chu Luiyue did not seem to notice the mockery in Elder Emotsang's voice. A sincere smile appeared on his face. Your academy is really generous. Elder Emotsang's heart skipped a beat. He felt that something was amiss. After thinking for a while, he could not figure it out, so he gave up. He raised his hand and pointed upstairs. The third floor is filled with Xian formations. The fourth floor is filled with prescriptions. I still have things to do, so I won't be showing you. You can do whatever you want. He felt that if he continued to stay with Chu Luiyue, he would be so angry that he would fall sick. Chu Luiyue didn't mind. She just looked up and asked curiously, Why are you here? Then, what about the fifth floor? Elder Emotsang's expression turned serious. Only the academy head is allowed to enter the fifth floor. Although you can read here for free for a month, that doesn't include the fifth floor. Chu Luiyue nodded. The books on the fourth floor should be enough for you to read. As long as you follow the rules, we won't make things difficult for you. However, if we find out what you're doing here, don't blame us for being rude. Chu Luiyue agreed with a smile. Don't worry. I won't be here for long, so I won't waste my time on other things. Elder Emotsang was relieved. He gave a few more words of advice and left. Soon, Chu Luiyue was the only one left in the library. She looked at the balls of light in front of her. She crossed her arms and tapped her chin with the other. Where should I start? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from LoveNet. Chapter 344. Elder Emotsang walked out of the library and looked at the two guards. Be careful during this period of time. Apart from the first floor, all books borrowed from the other floors must be recorded in the book. If there are any abnormalities, inform me as soon as possible. The two guards replied respectfully. Yes. Elder Emotsang was slightly relieved and couldn't help but turn around to take a look. The door was closed and everything was peaceful. Although Chu Luiyue's words were harsh, this was Tai Yen Academy after all. She was a smart person and wouldn't cause any trouble for him. But for some reason he felt uneasy. He didn't know where this uneasiness came from, but he felt as if his heart was suspended in mid-air, as if an accident would happen at any time. He frowned and felt that he might be overthinking. He erased the worry in his heart and turned to leave. However, as soon as he left, the two guards standing at the door suddenly sensed something and looked at the gray-white stone tablet placed on the right side of the door of the library. At this moment, a line of words suddenly appeared on the stone tablet. Snow Walk, Middle Stage Mystic Stage. After a while, the words on the stone tablet gradually converged and formed a star that shone brightly on the stone tablet. This has already started? One of them asked in bewilderment. How is this possible? She opened a middle stage mystic stage martial arts technique. Didn't they say that Chu Luiyue is only a stage 2 warrior now? How can she open a book of this level? The other person immediately denied. But, her strength is comparable to a stage 4 warrior. Logically speaking, she should be able to do it, right? But even a stage 4 warrior needs some time to open a middle stage mystic stage martial arts technique. Elder Emotsang just left, and Chu Luiyue opened it less than 15 minutes ago. How could she do it? Could it be someone else in the library who took it? According to the rules, the students of our academy are not allowed to enter the library unless there are special circumstances. She is the only one in the library now. The two of them looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. If their guess was correct, it meant that Chuliwe was stronger than they thought. Don't worry. Even if she opened the book quickly, it would still take a lot of time to study. It wasn't like this had never happened before, but usually, those people would only be able to read 100 books at most in a month. Among them, there are only a few who are truly proficient. That's true. Let's record down the first book she borrowed. One of them took out a booklet from his bosom and recorded the words that appeared on the stone tablet. However, before he could finish writing, another person suddenly exclaimed. He looked up in confusion. What's wrong? The man was dumbfounded. His hand, which was pointing at the stone tablet, trembled slightly. That. She has already opened the second book. What? The man in charge of recording hurriedly looked over and saw another line of words appear on the stone tablet. Scarlet Flame Chop, Mystic Middle Stage. Another Mystic Middle Stage martial skill. The two of them were stunned. The impact of this matter on them was so great that they didn't dare to confirm that it was true for a moment. I'm not seeing things, right? It's Mystic Middle Stage? The man in charge of recording rubbed his eyes. The words had turned into a second star, right next to the first. In other words, these two books were of the same level. Chu Luiyue had indeed opened the second Mystic Middle Stage martial skill. How did she do it? She should have only read the beginning of the first book, right? How did she open the second one? Maybe. She's just picking a martial skill that she likes, that's why she read it so quickly? That's possible. A cultivator's time and energy are limited. Choosing a suitable book to study carefully might be better than reading 10 books. But even so, the speed at which she opens the books is too fast. If she keeps doing this, impossible. There are barriers on the books. Every time she opens one, she has to use up a portion of her energy. How can she keep doing this? Forget it, let's not worry about this for now. Record down the second book as well. If Elder Emotsang finds out that we missed something, he won't let it go so easily. At this point he suddenly stopped. The two of them exchanged glances again. Given the current situation, if this continued, Elder Emotsang would most likely break down. In the library, Chu Luiyue quickly read through the book in her hands. Then she put it back and shrugged her shoulders in disappointment. Another Mystic Middle Stage. Ever since Elder Emotsang left, she had been staying on the second floor. She randomly picked a bookshelf in the middle and started reading. To her disappointment, she had already browsed through the entire bookshelf, but the best one was only at the middle stage of the profound stage. Most of them were lower stage mystic. Chu Luiyue helplessly walked to another bookshelf. Suddenly she saw a book from the corner of her eye. She focused her eyes on it. Upper yellow stage. Chu Luiyue was shocked. She had thought that the books here were at least mystic stage. She did not expect there to be books of this level. She rubbed her forehead and started to feel that she had been too polite to Elder Emotsang. She continued reading helplessly. This time she really wanted to find a few good books to read and learn some new martial arts techniques. This was because, unlike Shin formations and prescriptions, high-level martial arts techniques were passed down by sections. Under normal circumstances, the martial skills displayed by martial artists could reveal their origins and so on. It was the same for her. There were many high-level martial arts techniques stored in her mind, but they belonged to her in her previous life. Once they were displayed, people would definitely notice that something was wrong. Therefore, although she planned to continue learning these martial arts techniques in secret, she had to choose some new ones at the same time. Although she was a little disappointed, she still read through all the books to avoid wasting them. She had an eidetic memory. Even if she only skimmed through them quickly, she could still remember them clearly. Moreover, because she had once learned high-level martial arts techniques, she could always understand these high-level martial arts techniques very quickly. Chu Luiyue walked along the bookshelf and read one book after another, as if she was constantly throwing books into her mind. One book, another book. Why is she still continuing? The two guards outside the library saw a large patch of starlight gradually lighting up on the grayish-white stone tablet and finally collapsed. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 345. Chu Luiyue had only been in the library for a little over 2 hours and she had already read over 100 books. And they were all mystic class martial arts techniques. You stay here and keep watch. I'll go ask Elder Emotsang for instructions. One of them said with a panicked look on his face. Then he quickly left. The remaining person could not help but shout. Then, should I continue recording? He had written more records in the past 2 hours than he had in the past few days. More importantly, if Elder Emotsang saw this booklet, he would be even angrier. The person who was about to leave rubbed his face in frustration. Of course. According to Chu Liyue's trend, she's going to look through half of the library. Not only did he have to inform Elder Emotsang, but he also had to inform the dean and the other elders as soon as possible. The only thing they could do was to remember how much Chu Liyue had read. As long as they did their jobs well, the dean and the other elders would not be able to vent their anger on them. However, he was afraid that he would not have an easy time during this period of time. Seeing that the person had left, the remaining person wanted to say something, but he saw another line of words on the stone tablet from the corner of his eye. He could only resign himself to his fate and continue writing in the booklet, groaning inwardly. Was Chu Liyue even human? Elder Motsang had just finished his work and was about to lie down to rest when he heard hurried footsteps outside. Elder Emotsang. Elder Emotsang. When he heard the voice, he immediately frowned and walked outside. What's wrong? The man panted as he said, That's right. Elder Emotsang Chu. Chu Liyue she. He took a deep breath and did not know what to say. Elder Emotsang sneered. She's really restless. Did she cause a ruckus in the library? The man shook his head. No. What's wrong? Elder Emotsang was getting impatient when he saw that the man could not finish his sentence after a long time. Well, you should go and see for yourself. The man said awkwardly. Seeing him like this, Elder Emotsang felt an uneasy feeling in his heart again. There was only Chu Liyue in the library. Something happened, it must be her doing. But, speaking of which, she was only there to read. What else could she do? In the end he still decided to take a look. He lifted his foot and headed towards the library. The two of them quickly returned to the library. Elder Emotsang raised his head to take a look at the library. After making sure that everything was fine, he felt slightly relieved. What's going on? Wasn't there no problem? The man standing behind him couldn't help but remind him. Elder Emotsang, look over there. Elder Emotsang turned his head to look and his expression froze. On the stone tablet that had always been quiet and plain, countless starlight actually lit up at this moment. The stone tablet was connected to the library. Every book in the library corresponded to the corresponding position on the stone tablet. Every time a book was opened, a notification would appear on the stone tablet. In the end it would turn into a star. In this way, everything that happened in the library would be clear at a glance. However, Elder Emotsang had never seen so many stars on the stone tablet at the same time. In fact, they had even joined together into a single piece. Is there something wrong with the stone tablet? He subconsciously suppressed that absurd conjecture and asked anxiously. However, the answer given by the two of them made his heart sink to the bottom of the valley. Elder Emotsang, this is the record of the books that Chu Liyue opened after she entered. The man who had been taking notes said bitterly and handed over the booklet. Elder Emotsang glanced at it and saw that the brand new booklet was already half filled. His eyelids twitched violently. Almost uncontrollably, he stiffly took the booklet and flipped through it a few times. Page by page, line by line, everything was clear and clear. The ink on the latest page was not even dry yet. His lips moved, but he didn't know what to say. His hand that was holding the booklet trembled slightly. Elder Emotsang, ever since you left, Chu Liyue has been reading rapidly. I don't know how she did it, but the words on the stone tablet kept appearing one after another. This is the result of more than 2 hours of... Wait. Elder Emotsang, she opened another book. The man was explaining carefully when he suddenly saw another line of words appear on the stone tablet. He immediately opened his mouth nervously. Elder Emotsang gritted his teeth and turned to look. The light on the stone tablet was especially dazzling. Crush. He suddenly threw the booklet back into the man's arms and shouted angrily, You're a traitor. Keep writing. I'd like to see how much Chu Liyue can read. The man hurriedly opened the booklet again and wrote another line with trembling hands. Elder Emotsang stared at the library as if his gaze could pierce through it and cut Chu Liyue like a knife. Something was wrong. Something was definitely wrong. Apart from the first floor, most of the books on the other floors had a barrier. Chu Liyue might be able to open a few books, but how could she keep reading like this? Could it be that her force wouldn't run out? Moreover, even if she could open them easily, how could she read so many books in such a short time? Elder Emotsang, don't worry. Chu Liyue is reading so quickly. She must be picking the books she likes. She must have thrown the books away after a glance. It's just a bluff. She might not have learned anything at all. Elder Emotsang's mood improved a little when he heard this. In fact, he was thinking the same thing. This was the only reasonable explanation. Greed is like a snake trying to swallow an elephant, he said hatefully. Elder Emote-song, you're right. Chu Luiyue is only in her teens. She just won the Qingjiao competition, so it's natural for her to be arrogant. She won't benefit from doing this. She might not be able to pick anything until the end of the competition. As soon as he finished speaking, the stone tablet suddenly emitted a dazzling light. Elder Emote-song and the other elders looked over in shock and exclaimed, "She found an Earth-grade martial arts technique." Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 346. Jingshan Finger, Lower Earth Rank. A line of words appeared clearly on the stone tablet. It was indeed an Earth rank martial arts technique. The man in charge of recording looked at Elder Emote-song with his mouth agape. According to the rules, the activation of an Earth rank martial arts technique had to be recorded separately. Furthermore, the dean and all the elders had to be informed. Elder Emote-song's heart was boiling like lava. He didn't know how to vent his anger. All he could do was bellow. "Hurry up and record it." Yes. The man hurriedly took out another book and recorded it down with trembling fingers. The person standing behind Elder Emote-song was even more flustered. He tried his best to minimize his presence, not daring to utter another word. He even held his breath. Everyone could see that Elder Emote-song was on the verge of exploding. Anyone who dared to approach him would be in trouble. Elder Emote-song raised his head abruptly and looked at the second floor of the library. Although there were many books in the library, there were only a few books on Earth-rank martial arts techniques. Moreover, they were all hidden very well. How did Chu Luiyue find it? He wanted to rush in and chase Chu Luiyue out, but he could not. In the end, Chu Luiyue was only reading in there. She did nothing else. Even if she was reading at a breakneck speed, it was not her fault. Therefore, they could only continue to wait. If Chu Luiyue continued to behave like this, they would have to wait until the time was up for her to come out. Elder Emote-song, Chu Luiyue may have unlocked an Earth-rank martial arts technique, but it's not all for nothing. Look, it's been a while, but she hasn't continued to read other books. She must be studying that one. According to the agreement, she can only enter the library to borrow books, but she can't take them out. Therefore, she must be spending all her time on that one book. What do you think? The man in charge of recording said cautiously. Elder Emote-song's face darkened. Of course he had thought of that, but it was an Earth-rank martial arts technique after all. Now that Chu Luiyue had found him, he felt that he had suffered a great loss. Last year, the student who obtained first place in the Qingjiao competition didn't manage to obtain an Earth-rank martial technique from the other academies. You guys stay here and watch. I'll report this matter to the president. Yes. When Elder Emote-song arrived at Qing Han's residence, it was already night time. Light seeped through the window of Qing Han's room. Standing outside the door, Elder Emote-song could vaguely hear the voices of several people talking. He knocked on the door and the voices inside stopped. The door was opened. It was Qing Han. Under the illumination of the lantern light, his complexion did not look very good. "Emote-song? Why are you here? What is it?" Elder Emote-song looked over his shoulder. There were two other people in the room. They were the people sent by the other two academies to investigate Heng Jingchua and Yang Jianqing. It seemed like the three of them didn't have a good conversation. Elder Emote-song hurriedly replied, "Dean, there is an urgent matter that I need to inform you immediately." Qing Han was troubled by these two people and didn't know how to get rid of them. Elder Emote-song's arrival came at the right time. He glanced at Elder Emote-song and asked, "Elder Emote-song? Is it urgent?" Elder Emote-song understood and nodded without hesitation. Qing Han turned to look at the two people. "I'm sorry, but it seems like we have to stop here today." The two people knew that Qing Han was trying to escape, but they didn't want to expose him, so they got up and left. After they left, Qing Han let Elder Emote-song into the room and heaved a sigh of relief. Elder Emote-song asked tentatively, "Dean, it seems like things aren't going well?" Qing Han was frustrated. Yang Jianqing and Heng Jingchua are both dead, and there isn't even a corpse left behind. Where am I supposed to find any clues? They've already followed them to the academy, but they still haven't found anything. If they can't find anything, they'll just say that I'm covering for them. Qing Han felt that he was being wronged. However, the matter had blown up and everyone knew that they were investigating, so he couldn't just chase them out. He rubbed his temples. "Forget it, let's not talk about this anymore. Why are you here?" Elder Emote-song's anger had mostly subsided, but it was mostly replaced by uneasiness and anxiety. Before he came, he had been thinking about how to tell the dean about this. Be it the dean or Taiyan Academy, they had all suffered too much at the hands of Chu Luiyue. This matter would only make things worse. After deliberating for a long time, he finally decided to tell the truth. Chu Luiyue found an earth-grade martial arts technique in the library. Cheng Han's expression froze. Elder Emote Song had already expected this reaction, so he tried to persuade him. Dean, don't worry, which one did she find? Cheng Han asked in an urgent tone. Elder Emote Song thought for a moment and said, I think it's Jingshin Finger? This martial arts technique is earth-grade. Crash. Bang. Cheng Han stood up abruptly, and the chair under him toppled over. He grabbed Elder Emote Song's collar. What did you say? Elder Emote Song recounted the matter with difficulty. Earth-grade. Fortunately, she has stopped studying this book. You, bam. Cheng Han pushed him out of the library. Elder Emote Song staggered a few steps and crashed into the wall. Cheng Han's strength was extremely great. This collision almost cracked his shoulder blade, but he didn't dare to show the slightest bit of dissatisfaction. He rubbed his shoulders, only to see that Cheng Han had already left with large strides. Dean? He was shocked and quickly chased after him. As he chased after Cheng Han, he recalled Cheng Han's reaction. The dean seemed to be particularly concerned about this matter. Even if Chu Luiyue had obtained an earth-grade martial arts technique, the dean's reaction should not have been so intense. He frowned and quickly caught up with Cheng Han. Inside the library, Chu Luiyue sat cross-legged. In front of her, a book floated quietly, flipping page by page. She stared at the words and pictures on the book, imprinting them in her mind. Jingshin Finger. Although it was only earth-grade, it was one of the best martial arts techniques in the library. This was a martial arts technique that was related to finger techniques. A martial arts technique of this level was not something that could be mastered in a short period of time, so Chu Luiyue planned to memorize it first and practice it seriously when she had the time. Earth-grade martial arts techniques were something that ordinary cultivators would need to read hundreds of times before they could begin to understand and thousands of times before they could master it. However, Chu Luiyue was different. She had read many martial arts techniques that were more advanced than this one, so it did not take her much effort to read this one. However, when she had read 1/3 of the book, she suddenly felt that something was wrong. Why was this Jingshin Finger more complicated and obscure than the one she had read before? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from LoveNet. Chapter 347. She started reading from the beginning with uncertainty and realized that her intuition was right. This Jingshin Finger was indeed more exquisite than the finger techniques she had practiced before. It was not obvious at the start, but the feeling became stronger as she read on. Looking at the middle, Chu Luiyue could already imagine what kind of shocking power Jingshin Finger would have after successfully cultivating it. Her heart raced uncontrollably, and all the blood in her body seemed to be boiling. If she guessed correctly, this Jingshin Finger was definitely at the level of an upper-stage earth-stage martial art. Even in the Tianling dynasty, an upper-stage earth-stage martial art technique was rare. Chu Luiyue really did not expect that such a martial art technique would be hidden in the inconspicuous library of Taiyan Academy. After a short moment of excitement, another question surfaced in Chu Luiyue's mind. Since this Jingshin Finger was comparable to an upper-stage earth-stage martial art technique, why was it judged as a lower-stage earth-stage martial art technique? Moreover, the people of Taiyan Academy did not seem to know the true level of this Jingshin Finger. Otherwise, they would not have casually placed it on the second floor. Chu Luiyue maintained the doubts in her heart and continued to look behind. When she finished 2/3 of the book, she finally realized something. This martial art technique seemed to be incomplete? Of course, this book looked intact from the outside. There were no gaps and the contents were very coherent. If one did not look carefully, they would not be able to tell that there was a problem. However, Chu Luiyue had practiced an earth-stage martial art technique before, so she quickly realized that this Jingshin Finger was not the complete version. Chu Luiyue frowned and continued reading. After flipping through this book, she finally confirmed her guess and knew why it was only classified as a lower-stage earth-stage martial art technique. This Jingshin Finger was indeed an incomplete martial art technique. If someone practiced according to the instructions in this book, they would still be able to master an earth-stage martial art technique. However, the power that could be used would be greatly reduced compared to its original potential. However, if one could find the missing parts of this Jingshin Finger and complete it, it would instantly increase by a few levels. Although a low-level earth-rank martial skill was precious, It was not worth mentioning when compared to an upper-level Earth-rank martial skill. Now that there was a chance to obtain an Earth-stage upper-level martial skill, Chu Luiyue naturally wouldn't let it go. She looked at the Jingxin finger again, imprinting it deeply into her mind. After that, she stood up and continued searching, hoping to find other things related to the Jingxin finger. Outside the library. Night fell and the sky was completely dark. Cheng Han rushed over from afar and saw that the surroundings were dark. Only the candlelight on the second floor of the Compendium Pavilion was exceptionally clear. His heart felt as if it had been struck by something. Then he quickened his pace and rushed over. The two guards in charge of guarding the library saw his figure and immediately saluted in fear and trepidation. "Greetings, Principal." Cheng Han ignored them and immediately looked at the stone tablet beside him. The stone tablet, which had always been dull and plain, was now lit up with a large amount of starlight. Above the vast expanse of starlight, there was an abnormally bright star. Even if all the other stars were added together, they wouldn't be as dazzling as this one. His vision turned black and he staggered, almost falling to the ground. "Principal? What's wrong?" The two guards saw that something was wrong with Cheng Han and asked carefully. Cheng Han held his forehead and lowered his head in silence for a while. Only then did he suppress the emotions in his heart and calm himself down. He turned around and hid the trace of panic in his eyes. "How much has Chu Luiyue read now?" "Principal, don't worry. Ever since Chu Luiyue entered, all the books she has read have been recorded. They are all in these two booklets. Please take a look." One of them immediately handed the booklets over. Cheng Han took the two booklets. Obviously, one was a normal record and the other was a special record of Earth-rank martial skills. He quickly skimmed through the two books. In fact, he was no longer interested in the normal record book. Even though it was almost filled with words, it was not as shocking as the lone line of words on the second booklet. His face was like a stiff mask. Although there was no expression on his face, it looked inexplicably unnatural. It was so strange that it sent chills down one's spine. "Principal," Chu Luiyue read very quickly in the beginning, "but ever since she found the Earth-rank martial skill, she hasn't done anything." The other person quickly glanced at Cheng Han, trying to ease the atmosphere. However, he soon realized that Cheng Han's face had turned even uglier. "Shut up." Cheng Han couldn't take it anymore and threw the booklet at the person who spoke. That person was terrified and immediately knelt down to apologize. "Principal, please calm down. Please calm down." Seeing this, the other person felt a chill in his heart and quickly knelt down as well. They had never seen the principal so angry in public. The principal seemed to be angrier than expected about this matter. At this moment, Elder Emotsang finally caught up with them. He saw the two people kneeling on the ground begging for mercy and stopped in his tracks. Even though Cheng Han's back was facing him, it wasn't hard to imagine what kind of expression he had. Just as he was hesitating about what to say, another line of words appeared on the stone tablet. "Phaseless Manual, Middle Stage Dark Rank." Chu Luiyue started again? He immediately said, "What are you waiting for? Hurry up and continue writing." The two people who were kneeling on the ground were shocked. They quickly looked up and saw the words on the stone tablet. Their faces all paled in unison. Didn't Chu Luiyue already open an Earth-rank martial skill? Why did she start reading other books? Cheng Han also noticed this and immediately looked over. When he saw that it was only a dark-rank martial skill, his tense heart relaxed a little. Elder Emotsang walked up to him. Seeing that his expression was less tense, he advised him in a low voice. "Earth-rank martial skills are difficult to understand. With Chu Luiyue's current level and strength, it would be difficult for her to read through it. It seems that she has given up." Cheng Han rubbed his eyebrows. "I hope so." However, in the next moment he suddenly thought of something. His eyes widened and he looked at the second floor. What if Chu Luiyue didn't give up? As if to confirm his guess, another line of words appeared on the stone tablet. It was still a dark-rank martial skill. The stars on it were still increasing. In other words, Chu Luiyue was still looking for something. Cheng Han's heart was filled with fear. Could it be that Chu Luiyue had discovered the secret in the library? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 348. Chu Luiyue seems to be on the second floor. She seems to be more talented as a mystic cultivator and celestial physician. Why isn't she on the third or fourth floor? Elder Emotsang did not notice Cheng Han's expression and muttered to himself. This made Cheng Han even more worried. That's right. If she doesn't know something, Why is Chu Luiyue only on the second floor and not on the other floors? She started reading other books after finding the Earth rank martial skill. She's obviously looking for something. Qing Han could not help but feel anxious. However, he could not rush in and ask Chu Luiyue to stop. The words on the stone tablet continued to appear. Chu Luiyue was still flipping through the books on the second floor at an extraordinary speed. One book, another book. Qing Han stood there motionless. The others did not dare to move and could only wait with him. After a long time, Elder Emotsang finally asked, "Dean, Chu Luiyue is going to be in there for a while. You're not going to wait here forever, are you?" Qing Han was even more frustrated. Of course he knew. This was what he was most worried about. Previously, he did not expect Chu Luiyue to find the Jingxin finger and even open it to take a look. However, it would be strange if she continued to stay here and would attract more attention. Be careful. Record down all the books that Chu Luiyue borrows. With that, he waved his sleeves and left. Elder Emotsang felt that Qing Han's reaction was strange and could not help but look at the library again. What's the dean worried about? After Qing Han and Elder Emotsang left, only the other two were left to guard the library. Since things had developed to this point, they did not dare to be careless and continued to guard the library. Time ticked by and soon the moon was high in the sky. However, the lights on the second floor were still on. One of them yawned and could not help but grumble. How long is Chu Luiyue going to read? What time is it? Why isn't she asleep yet? The other person was also affected and became tired. Who wouldn't want to be able to enter the book collection pavilion and read as they wish? If it were you, would you be willing to sleep in there? Besides, she had found an Earth rank martial skill. Who knew how excited she was? In any case, if I were to obtain an Earth grade martial skill, I would read it even if I didn't sleep or rest. That may be the case, but everyone needs to rest, right? She's not tired, but I've written so many words today. I'm tired. The two of them waited for a while longer. Seeing that Chu Luiyue had no intention of stopping, they had no choice but to take turns recording. This isn't. Chu Luiyue quickly browsed through another bookshelf, but she still did not find anything. Ever since she discovered Jingxin finger, she increased her reading speed. Until now, she had already read 1/5 of all the books on the second floor. However, she didn't find anything related to Jingxin finger. That martial technique scroll was like a lost pearl in the vast sea. Chu Luiyue sighed softly. Perhaps there was only one scroll of Jingxin finger here. After all, if Taiyan Academy really had the complete version, it would definitely cause a huge commotion. Chu Luiyue was about to continue moving forward when Dumpling suddenly appeared in front of her. Its round eyes were filled with obvious disapproval. She was stunned for a moment. Dumpling, what's the matter? Dumpling crossed its paws and placed them under its head. Chu Luiyue couldn't help but burst out laughing. You want me to sleep? Dumpling nodded vigorously. Chu Luiyue shook her head. Don't worry, I'm not sleepy now. She had been thinking about Jingxin finger and didn't want to rest. Just as she was about to move forward again, Dumpling stopped her again and shook its head frantically. Chu Luiyue smiled helplessly and tapped its head. Alright, stop shaking me. I'll go to sleep. Only then was Dumpling satisfied. It pounced on her and rubbed its head against her face. Perhaps because it was too tired, it fell asleep very quickly. The next morning, Chu Luiyue woke up very early and continued following the path that she saw the day before. The two people in charge of recording outside the library had stayed up all night and had obvious dark circles under their eyes. They couldn't even remember when Chu Luiyue ended yesterday. They only realized that Chu Luiyue had started again. The two of them were angry but didn't dare to say anything. They could only accept their fate and continue recording. Qing Han didn't sleep well the entire night. Even when he woke up in the morning, the frightening images in his mind hadn't dissipated. They were all related to Chu Luiyue. Jingxin finger. He felt uneasy and planned to take another look at the library. However, he was stopped not long after he walked out. It was still about the people investigating Yang Jianqing and Heng Jingshua. The families of these two people had been brought over and needed to be interrogated by the people from the three academies. Qing Han had no choice but to leave with them. The matter at the library was temporarily put aside. Country Yao Chen, the palace. The Empress looked at the two people standing in front of her and couldn't help but ask, "Is there really no news?" The two of them nodded. Her Majesty, we've secretly searched the entire imperial city, but we still haven't found any traces of the fourth princess. The Empress seemed to have lost all her energy as she leaned against the chair dejectedly. It had been a few days, but there was no news of Rong Zhen. These two were from the Xi family. Since they said so, it meant that they really couldn't find her. The Empress closed her eyes weakly. She wanted to ask Si Ting to find out more information from Chu Luiyue, but Si Ting refused. Before she could find a suitable person, Chu Luiyue went to Tai Yen Academy. She really had no other choice now. I understand. You can go back first. She waved her hand and asked the two of them to leave. Everyone in the palace knew that they were from the Si family, and they claimed that they were here to deliver things on behalf of the Si family. Hence, they naturally couldn't stay for long. After the two of them left, the Empress sat in her seat and didn't speak for a long time. What's bothering you, Empress? Suddenly, a familiar voice sounded from the door. The Empress was shocked as she looked up and saw Emperor Jiawen standing there. She was shocked and hurriedly stood up to bow. Greetings, Your Majesty. Emperor Jiawen walked over and helped her up. You don't have to be so polite, Empress. The Empress smiled and looked at the few palace servants at the door as she reprimanded them. His Majesty is here, but none of you reported his arrival. You, Empress, you don't have to be angry at them. I didn't want them to be like this on purpose. Emperor Jiawen shook his head and didn't care. The Empress hurriedly adjusted her expression and smiled. Since Your Majesty has said so, I naturally have no reason to pursue the matter. You haven't been here for a long time and I'm really flattered. Emperor Jiawen said, I've been a little cold to you and your son recently. I heard that you weren't in a good mood recently, so I came to take a look. Alright, I haven't seen Jinzhen in a long time. Why don't you come with me? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 349. Upon hearing the first half of the sentence, the Empress was still elated, but the second half made her feel worse. She looked up in shock. What? Your Majesty, you want to visit Jinzhen? Emperor Jiawen stroked his beard and sighed. That's right. Previously she was arrogant and willful, so I purposely ignored her so that she could change. Now that some time has passed, I think she knows her mistake. Besides, I really miss her, so I'm here to visit her with you. Emperor Jiawen had his own considerations. Rong Jin did make a huge mistake, but he received the corresponding punishment. Besides, he was the one who didn't live up to expectations, and the Empress and the rest were implicated. He just wanted them to be more wary of Rong Jin, but he didn't plan on making Rong Jin unable to recover. As for Rong Zhen, she was his favorite daughter in the past, so he couldn't bear to let her go. Hence, after these few days he took the initiative to ask the Empress to visit Rong Zhen. The Empress hesitated. Your Majesty, Rong Zhen hasn't been in a good mood recently, and she's been locking herself in her room. I'm worried that she might do something to offend you if you go. Why don't you wait for her to calm down before visiting her? Emperor Jiawen knitted his brows. Locking herself up and refusing to see anyone? What's wrong with her again? Who provoked her again? The Empress smiled apologetically. You actually know that it's because of Vice Admiral Mu. Previously, she had been hoping to get Vice Admiral Mu to help heal her broken pearl of essence, but you know what happened after that? She's very upset because of this. Emperor Jiawen's expression softened. No wonder. He originally wanted to speak up for Rong Zhen, but Mu Qinghe wasn't someone who was easy to talk to. Besides, Rong Zhen had offended him and made him impatient. Hence, it was even more impossible for him to help. Given the current situation, Rong Zhen could only blame herself for being unlucky. I heard that Chu Luiyue pleaded for Princess Yongping and got Vice Admiral Mu to invite a celestial physician from the Tianling dynasty to treat Princess Consort Ping Jiang. The Empress lowered her eyes, looking sad. This concubine is truly envious. It's a pity that Jinzhen and Chu Luiyue had some conflicts back then. Otherwise, I really want to ask her for help. Perhaps Jinzhen can. As she spoke, she wiped her tears with a handkerchief, as if she was very sad and regretful. However, she kept glancing at Emperor Jiawen from the corner of her eye. What disappointed her was that Emperor Jiawen didn't look angry at all. She felt a little depressed. As a princess, Rong Zhen was treated worse than Chu Luiyue and Mu Hongyu. Why was His Majesty not angry at all? However, she didn't know that Emperor Jiawen had been to the Tianling dynasty before and knew how powerful it was. He clearly knew that he and the entire country Yao Chen were nothing but ants in Mu Qinghe's eyes. What Mu Qinghe wanted to do and who he wanted to help was his own business. Who was he to say anything? Emperor Jiawen pondered for a moment and said, "That's right. You can't be blamed for this. In the unseen world, everything had its own destiny. However, she can't go on like this. Forget it. I'll go and take a look myself." The Empress was shocked and she couldn't be bothered to wipe her tears. Your Majesty, I think it's better to let Jinjin calm down for a while, right? You know her personality. The more you force her, the more disobedient she becomes. Emperor Jiawen knitted his brows and stared at the Empress. Empress, you seem to not want me to see Jinjin. This is weird. In the past, the Empress would always think of ways to invite him over. Of course, he knew that the Empress wanted to show his love for Rongjin, so he would turn a blind eye most of the time. However, today was really weird. No, I'm just. The Empress retorted without thinking, but she didn't know how to continue. Emperor Jiawen was even more confused. His expression became stern. Since you're not willing to go, I'll go myself. After saying that, he lifted his foot and walked outside. The Empress was completely flustered. If I don't stop His Majesty, the consequences will be unimaginable. She followed him without thinking. At the same time, she kept thinking of reasons in her mind. However, Emperor Jiawen seemed determined to go. Just as she was in a terrible fix, a person rushed over from the opposite direction. Your Majesty. Urgent report. Emperor Jiawen finally stopped and asked with knitted brows, What urgent report? Why is it so urgent? The person presented a wooden box with both hands. Your Majesty, you'll know when you read it yourself. Emperor Jiawen glanced at the wooden box, and his expression turned serious. This is the box that country Xingluo's emperor used to communicate with him secretly, so it must contain the other party's secret letter. Why is there news at this time? The Empress took a look and recognized what it was. She was elated. This is indeed an urgent report, and His Majesty will definitely deal with this first. No matter how urgent Rongjin's matter is, it can't be more important than the country's matters. As expected, Emperor Jiawen held the wooden box in his hands and glanced at the Empress. We'll end it here today. I'll go and see Rongjin after I settle this. The Empress couldn't ask for more. Don't worry, Your Majesty. I'll personally visit Jinjin later and patiently counsel her. Emperor Jiawen felt that something was amiss, but he couldn't care less now. Return to the Imperial Study. Eunuch Min flicked his horsetail whisk. Set up the Imperial Study. The group of people left in a grandiose manner. The Empress only heaved a sigh of relief when their figures disappeared in front of her. However, she knew that she had to find Rongjin as soon as possible. His Majesty already has suspicions and he will definitely continue. If he finds out that Rongjin is missing, the Empress didn't dare to imagine it. She stood rooted to the ground for a while before deciding to act until the end. Let's go to the fourth princess. On the other end, Emperor Jiawen returned to the Imperial Study. After confirming that the surroundings were heavily guarded, he finally opened the wooden box. There was a snow-white letter inside and there weren't any words on it. However, he didn't look shocked. Instead, he habitually opened it and picked up the brush at the side. He dipped the brush into the ink slab and drew a line on the paper. Then he drew a second line, a third line, until the end he used ink to cover the entire paper. At first glance, there was only a black blob of ink on the paper. But very quickly white words started to appear under the blob of ink. After about a quarter of an hour, the contents of the scroll were finally revealed. Emperor Jiawen read it, and shock flashed across his eyes. Then, as if he wasn't sure, he moved closer and seriously checked every word again. He stared at the paper and kept quiet for a long time until the words on it completely disappeared. Summon the Crown Prince. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 350. In the blink of an eye, Chu Luiyue had already stayed in Taiyan Academy for 5 days. Apart from her normal work and rest, she spent most of her energy in the library. When the morning of the 6th day arrived, Chu Luiyue put down the book in her hand and let out a long sigh. There's still nothing. In the past few days she had read all the books on the 2nd floor, but she still didn't find anything related to Jingxin Finger. This was within her expectations, but she was still a little disappointed. She looked up. The 3rd floor was about Shen formations and the 4th floor was about medicine. Although she didn't really need these books, she could go up and take a look. Thinking of this, she finally went up. When Cheng Han came to the library again, he saw 2 stacks of books beside each of the 2 guards. Without asking, he knew that those were the records of the books Chu Luiyue had read. Cheng Han's eyelids twitched. On the first day, he knew that Chu Luiyue was a ruthless person, but he still underestimated how perverted she was. Ding. You're here? The 2 of them had been working hard for a few days and had become much more haggard, but when they saw Cheng Han, they forced themselves to be alert. How many books did she read? Cheng Han controlled his expression and asked. He had been busy dealing with Yang Jianqing and Heng Jingchua these few days, so he didn't have time to come here. He didn't want to open those books at all. The two of them looked at each other and felt a little guilty. Just say it. Dean, she has finished reading all the books on the second floor these few days, one of them braced himself and said. Cheng Han's vision turned black, and his heart seemed to be numb. Then, what about the Earth grade martial skills? She didn't open any new Earth grade martial skills. She only read the first one. The darkness in front of Cheng Han's eyes gradually faded. He swallowed hard. That's good, that's good. That's the most important thing. As long as she didn't continue, everything could still be salvaged. She's on the third floor now? Yes. Master. Cheng Han was about to say something when he suddenly heard a familiar voice. He turned around in surprise. Xingqian, why are you here? Situ Xingqian smiled. Your disciple has come today to ask for a temporary leave of absence and return to the palace. Cheng Han asked curiously, why do you want to go back all of a sudden? Situ Xingqian usually spent most of her time in the academy and would only return to the palace when she had something to do. Situ Xingqian lightly nodded. Elder Zhongyi is here today. Elder Zhongyi? So fast? Cheng Han was somewhat surprised. Yes. Tonight, Imperial Father plans to hold a welcoming banquet for Elder Zhongyi, so this disciple also has to make a trip back. Cheng Han knew about this matter. Elder Zhongyi was actually country Xing Luo's empress, Zhong Yushi's brother. He was also Situ Xingqian's uncle. He was an elder of Mingyue Tianshan and had a high status. This was also the reason why Situ Xingqian was sent there when she was young. Mingyue Tianshan was very far from here, and the people there rarely went down the mountain. Hence, it was rare for Elder Zhongyi to come out this time. The reason why he did this was because of Situ Ziyue. Previously, during the Qingjiao competition, he lost terribly to Chu Luiyue and suffered a huge setback both physically and mentally. He could not recover from the setback and his body did not seem to be getting better. Zhong Yushi's heart ached for him, so she invited Elder Zhongyi over. On the one hand, she wanted to see if there were any problems with his body. On the other hand, she wanted to see if she could counsel him. Of course, she also missed her brother, whom she had not seen for many years. Now that Elder Zhongyi was here, they naturally had to treat him with respect. It's my duty. When you see Elder Zhongyi, send my regards to him, said Cheng Han. Situ Xingqian smiled and agreed. Then, her gaze silently swept past the booklets beside the two of them, and a hint of obscurity flashed across her eyes. Are the books recorded in these booklets, the ones Chu Luiyue read? Digression. There's not enough time. Let's update first. I'll continue to add a part later. Chapter 351. That wave was very small and disappeared very quickly. However, Chu Luiyue was sure that it really existed. She stood in place and waited for a while. Sure enough, that wave came again. But this time, the movement caused by the fluctuations was even smaller. If Chu Luiyue had not observed it carefully, she would not have noticed it. She took a few steps forward and stood in the center of the fourth floor. Then she looked up. The entire fifth floor had a mysterious aura, as if it was isolated from the rest of the world. After a while, Chu Luiyue sensed the third wave. However, this time it was weaker than the previous one. It was as if the wave was gradually decreasing. Chu Luiyue waited for a while more, but she did not sense any more movements. She looked around. The commotion from the fifth floor did not seem to affect the fourth floor. Everything that happened just now seemed to be her imagination. However, she knew that was not the case. Chu Luiyue recalled Elder Mo Tsang's words. Only the president of Taiyan Academy could enter the fifth floor? Her rationality told her that she should ignore the commotion on the fifth floor and not provoke unknown trouble. However, deep in her heart, there was a faint impulse that made her unable to leave. Chu Luiyue held her breath and finally walked up the stairs. Just as she was about to step on the stairs, a silver light flashed in front of her eyes. She immediately stopped and looked up. She saw a huge silver Xian formation floating above her head. Countless rays of light intertwined with each other. The Xian formation was like a magnificent matrix that sealed the entire fifth floor. Chu Luiyue could clearly feel a powerful deterrent aura coming from it. She stared at the Xian formation and frowned. It was not impossible for her to break the Xian formation, but it was impossible with her current strength. Moreover, she was more worried that she would attract the attention of others once she started to break the Xian formation. The library was very important to Taiyan Academy, and the fifth floor was obviously the most important one. Cheng Han hated her to the core, so he would definitely watch over her strictly and wait for her weakness. Chu Luiyue took a step back, and the Xian formation dimmed significantly. She gritted her teeth, unwilling to give up. Do you want to go up? A hoarse voice suddenly came from his dantian. Chu Luiyue was stunned. Legendary three-eyed eagle? Do you have a way to help me get in? It seems like you don't know much about my race's abilities. The tone of the legendary three-eyed eagle was as arrogant as ever. Chu Luiyue's eyes lit up. She had actually forgotten that as divine beasts, the three-eyed eagle clan did indeed have a special ability, space freezing. The so-called space freeze referred to the ability to completely control the space within a certain range. Within that space, the legendary three-eyed eagle possessed absolute authority and supreme power. You mean, to freeze the fifth floor? Chu Luiyue's eyes widened as she asked. Not bad. Since I am in your body and under your control, as long as you enter my divine domain, you will be able to control everything that I can control. So it was called the divine domain. Chu Luiyue's mind raced. She had to admit that the suggestion of the legendary three-eyed eagle was very tempting. On one hand, the legendary three-eyed eagle could use the divine domain to avoid attracting the attention of outsiders. On the other hand, she would have an additional layer of assurance to enter the fifth floor. Now, no one knew what would happen after going up. With the help of the legendary three-eyed eagle, it would definitely be much better. After all, it was a divine beast. Naturally, it was extraordinary. What are your conditions? Chu Luiyue asked straightforwardly. The legendary three-eyed eagle took the initiative to help. Of course, it was not out of kindness. I will help you this time and you will let me go. Impossible. Chu Luiyue rejected directly. The legendary three-eyed eagle's voice contained a trace of anger. The heavenly square cauldron is already yours. Continuing to trap me inside will not benefit you at all. I will help you this time and you will let me go. Isn't this just right? Who said it won't benefit me? Chu Luiyue interrupted the legendary three-eyed eagle with a smile. Look, now that you can help me go in, isn't that a benefit? You? Cunning. The legendary three-eyed eagle shouted angrily. Chu Luiyue shrugged and did not care at all. It's not the first day you know me. It's impossible to let you go, but we can discuss other things. Other than that, there's nothing else to discuss. Don't be anxious. I haven't said it yet. If I say it, you might be interested. Chu Luiyue crossed his arms and touched his chin. How about, I think of a way to help you recover your physical body? The legendary three-eyed eagle seemed to be shocked. After a while it sneered. You. Just me. Chu Luiyue did not care about the contempt and sarcasm in its words. For an ordinary magical beast, the shattering of the core of essence means that it is completely dead. But as long as the soul of a divine beast is not destroyed, it is not really dead. Although your physical body has been destroyed, your soul is perfectly preserved in the heavenly square cauldron. The reason why you are so eager to leave is actually because of this, right? The legendary three-eyed eagle did not answer. Of course I can't do it now, but it doesn't mean that I can't do it in the future. You are a divine beast, so you naturally know how to rebuild your physical body and let yourself be truly resurrected. As long as you tell me, I can naturally help you. After a while, the legendary three-eyed eagle said, How do I know if you are telling the truth? Other than that, you have no other choice. Chu Luiyue's attitude was very strong. She had the heavenly square cauldron in her hands, which was what the legendary three-eyed eagle was most afraid of. It could not escape. If it was not willing to compromise, it could only continue to suffer the burning pain in the heavenly square cauldron. Therefore, she was determined to win this negotiation. After a short stalemate, Chu Luiyue suddenly felt a wave of pressure spreading from the heavenly square cauldron. In the next moment, a black phantom appeared above her head. She looked up. Whoosh! The phantom suddenly spread its wings. A vast power exploded from it. A black feather suddenly drifted from it and flew up to the fifth floor. Chu Luiyue's gaze was fixed on it. She saw that the black feather suddenly stopped in midair. Divine realm descend. The legendary three-eyed eagle roared. The next moment, with the black feather as the center, the surrounding space began to solidify. Chu Luiyue could clearly see that the entire space seemed to have solidified. Soon, the huge Xian formation on the fifth floor was also enveloped. One of the stars stopped flickering. A ray of light stopped flowing. Soon, the entire Xian formation was completely solidified. It was like a magnificent and dazzling picture scroll that had been compressed. Chu Luiyue widened her eyes. Blood constantly pounded against her eardrums, and her mind was in a state of roaring. Her heart was almost about to jump out. This was the first time she had seen a divine beast use the divine realm. Although the legendary three-eyed eagle was only a soul now, the divine pressure it displayed still made Chu Liyue's blood boil. This was the strength of a divine beast. Go. Digression. Yesterday I fell asleep at 3 o'clock in the morning and was about to go crazy. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from love. Chapter 352. Chu Liyue took a step forward almost uncontrollably. When her body entered the frozen space, a cold feeling suddenly swept over her. The entire space was like a flowing liquid. Chu Liyue could clearly feel that when she moved in this space, the resistance she felt was as if she was walking in a quietly flowing stream. She held her breath and couldn't help but look up curiously. That black feather floated quietly in the center, as if it couldn't be moved no matter how hard she tried. Chu Liyue knew that that was the key to the legendary three-eyed eagle's divine realm. Everything in this space was controlled by that black feather. Chu Liyue was secretly amazed by the magic of the divine realm. It was rumored that when a cultivator broke through to the 9th rank, they could step into a higher level and also have the power to use the divine realm. Unfortunately, this was just a rumor to her. The ancestor of the Tianling dynasty had once reached the 9th rank, but he left not long after breaking through the shackles and never returned. In the history books of the royal family, there was no content after that. Everything only left the world with countless questions. Chu Liyue was the second person to have the Tianjing Yuan meridian after that ancestor in the entire Tianling dynasty. Everyone secretly hoped that she could reach the same realm as that ancestor, and even she herself was constantly working hard to cultivate. Unfortunately, she was betrayed and forced to die in the royal family's ancestral hall. She never had the chance again. She sighed softly in her heart, put away her memories and walked up. After walking through the 9 steps, she arrived in front of the Xian formation. She stretched out her hand and touched the starlight on the Xian formation. However, at this time in the legendary three-eyed eagle's divine realm, everything was under its control. Even the power of the Xian formation was almost completely frozen and couldn't be used. She continued to walk up, and her entire body silently passed through the Xian formation. When she turned around, she saw that the Xian formation had returned to its previous state, without any trace of being touched. It had to be said that the legendary three-eyed eagle was really something, Chu Liyue thought, and finally stepped onto the 5th floor. A somewhat familiar fluctuation came from the front. She looked up. Country of Xing Luo Imperial Palace. Situ Ziyue's sleeping quarters. Elder Zhongyi was taking his pulse while Situ Xingqian stood by the side and waited quietly. After a long while, Elder Zhongyi finally loosened his grip and smiled. All right, your internal injuries are basically healed. They won't affect your cultivation in the future. Only then did Situ Ziyu's tense expression relax a little. It's all thanks to you. If it wasn't for your help these past few days, I'm afraid that my body would have. Hey, you can't say that. I remember that Xing Chen's master, Qing Han, is also a 5th-grade celestial physician. Even if I don't come, he will definitely be able to treat you. Elder Zhongyi smiled and waved his hand. Situ Ziyue sighed and said, to be honest, Elder Zhongyi, it's not that I don't trust Dean Qing Han, but I trust you more. Sure enough, this flattery made Elder Zhongyi's expression become slightly better. At the side, Situ Xingqian had a faint smile on her lips as if she didn't care about Situ Ziyue's belittling of her mentor. She had been at Mingyue Tianshan for many years, so she naturally understood Elder Zhongyi's character. He had entered Mingyue Tianshan to cultivate a few years ago and rose to become an elder. He had a respectable status and didn't think highly of people like Qing Han. Ah, Ziyue, I know your intentions, but Xing Chen is still here. Qing Han is her mentor after all. Aren't you afraid of hurting her by saying this? Said Elder Zhongyi with a chuckle. Actually, brother is right. In Xing Chen's eyes, mentor Qing Han can't be compared to you. Situ Xingqian smiled gently, and her beautiful face was filled with sincerity. Elder Zhongyi took out a folding fan and lightly knocked on Situ Xingqian's forehead. I haven't seen you in a few years, but you're even better at sweet-talking people. Situ Xingqian smiled. You're joking again. She glanced outside and said, it's already late. Elder Zhongyi, why don't you let brother have a good rest first? I'll accompany you back. Elder Zhongyi looked at her thoughtfully, then laughed out loud. That's right. Then let's leave first and let Ziyue recover. Situ Ziyue originally wanted to send them off personally, but the duo rejected him. Hence he could only lie back down on the bed. On the other end, Situ Xingqian accompanied Elder Zhongyi and left. After walking for a distance, Elder Zhongyi then asked, Xingchen, why are you here? Xingchen, do you have something on your mind? A helpless and bitter smile surfaced on Situ Xingchen's face. It's been so many years. Indeed, I can't hide my thoughts from you. Elder Zhongyi placed his hands behind his back, and his voice was much lower and gentler. You grew up by my side, and I've always treated you as my biological daughter. These few days you've been busy helping Ziyue. I can tell that you have something on your mind and that you're not very happy. If you don't mind, you can tell me. Situ Xingchen kept quiet for a while before softly asking, Elder Zhongyi, do you know that? Elder Zhongyi, do you know that Brother Rongxiu is engaged to someone? What? Elder Zhongyi suddenly stood still and looked at Situ Xingchen in shock. When did this happen? To who? Just 10 days ago. The girl he's engaged to is Chu Luiyue. Elder Zhongyi was confused. Who is that? He stayed in Mingyue Tianshan all year round, so he didn't know much about the outside world. This time he came all the way here after leaving the mountain. He had been busy taking care of Situ Ziyue's health for the past few days, so he didn't know about the Qingjiao competition and the rest. Situ Xingchen briefly introduced Chu Luiyue and roughly explained what had happened recently. Elder Zhongyi didn't recover his senses for a long time. You're saying that he took the initiative to propose to that girl? How can that be? He's cold by nature, and he hasn't interacted much with other girls for so many years in Mingyue Tianshan. Why did he? Elder Zhongyi looked at Situ Xingchen with heartache. No wonder these past few days you. He had long sensed that Situ Xingchen liked Rongxiu. Now that he saw her sad expression, he thought that it was indeed so. Situ Xingchen forced a smile and said, You don't have to worry about me, I'm fine. I thought that I could wait for him all these years, but I didn't expect. I can only say that we're not fated. Seeing her like this, Elder Zhongyi thought for a while and said, Why don't you ask me to teach him? Why don't I ask his master and see if I can cancel this engagement? Situ Xingchen's heart skipped a beat, but she shook her head. You can't force anything to be sweet. Why should I be the bad guy? Besides, Country Yao Chen's crown prince, Rong Jin, is coming tomorrow. Elder Zhongyi was confused. Why is he here all of a sudden? Situ Xingchen looked down. Marriage alliance. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 353. Marriage alliance? With whom? Elder Zhongyi was dazed, but he suddenly understood when he saw Situ Xingchen's expression. With you. Situ Xingchen nodded lightly. Father has the same intention. Elder Zhongyi was shocked. Country Yao Chen and Country Xing Luo didn't have much interaction before, so why are they suddenly marrying each other? They even have designs on Situ Xingchen. What exactly is your father thinking? Rong Jin isn't outstanding in any way, and from what you said just now, he's narrow-minded and won't amount to anything. He's not worthy of you at all. Even if it's not Rongxiu, it should be another young talent. How can it be Rong Jin? Situ Xingchen didn't seem to care as she smiled. He's Country Yao Chen's crown prince after all, and he's not completely useless to be able to come this far. You might have underestimated him. Besides, even though this matter hasn't happened yet, father is very insistent, so he must have his reasons. What do you think? Anyway, I don't think this marriage alliance will work. Elder Zhongyi sneered. If it really happens, won't you have to stay in Country Yao Chen in the future? Since Rong Jin has done so many ridiculous things, it means that he can't take on big responsibilities. Even though he's still the crown prince, he can't stay in this position for long. Xingchen, don't worry. When that kid comes tomorrow, I'll definitely stop this marriage. With me around, your father won't dare to force you. Situ Xingchen's eyes sparkled. Elder Zhongyi, I know that you're doing this for my own good, but I've said so much to you today because I hope that you'll agree to this marriage tomorrow. What? You really want to marry Rong Jin? Elder Zhongyi looked at Situ Xingchen in disbelief. Why you can't purposely marry Rongxiu because he wants to marry someone else, right? Situ Xingchen chuckled. You're thinking too much. Why would I do such a thing? I really agree to this marriage. You also know that not many people know about this before. If I suddenly say it out loud, many people will definitely object to it. But if you can express your agreement tomorrow, then the others won't say anything. Elder Zhongyi had an extremely high status in Country Xing Luo. As long as he spoke, this matter would definitely go smoothly. Xingchen, have you really thought this through? Yes. Elder Zhongyi looked at Situ Xingchen's determined expression and couldn't help but sigh. All right. Since that's the case, I'll agree to it. Situ Xingqian's smile deepened. Many thanks, Elder Zhongyi. Country Yao Chen Imperial Palace. It was already late at night, but the Empress and Rong Jin were still discussing something in the room. You're going to Xing Luo tomorrow. This marriage must succeed. The Empress looked very serious. This is your best chance. If you miss it, who knows how long you'll have to wait. Rong Jin nodded. I know. Don't worry, I've already contacted Situ Xingqian. There won't be any problems with this. The Empress relaxed a little and leaned back in her chair with a satisfied smile on her face. That's good. I asked you to think of a way to improve your relationship with her. I didn't expect it to go so smoothly. Rong Jin also laughed and looked rather smug. Everyone says that Situ Xingqian is the brightest pearl in Xing Luo. Ever since she became of marriageable age, countless people have proposed to her, but she didn't agree. I originally thought that she would be hard to get close to, but I didn't expect her to. Perhaps she was interested in you before. The Empress sized Rong Jin up and smiled. To a woman, love is the most unpredictable thing. Everyone said that Situ Xingqian had high standards, but when she met someone like Rong Jin, it was easy for her to fall in love with him. Rong Jin originally didn't have any special feelings for Situ Xingqian, but when such an outstanding beauty liked him in all aspects, his ego was greatly satisfied. It was precisely because of this that his attitude toward this marriage changed drastically. Previously, he was a little unwilling, but now that he thought about how he could see Situ Xingqian tomorrow and settle the marriage, he had an inexplicable sense of anticipation. Anyway, you did a good job in this matter. When you arrive, try to settle this matter as soon as possible. As long as you settle the marriage, your position as the crown prince will be stable. The Empress sighed. This way, even if your father finds out about Zhen Zhen, we'll have a trump card. Rong Zhen asked worriedly, Haven't you found her? Haven't you found her? There's no news at all. It's as if she completely disappeared from the face of the earth. If it weren't for the lack of movement in the palace, she would have thought that Rong Zhen was dead. However, she clearly wasn't. Someone secretly hid Rong Zhen somewhere, and they couldn't find her after searching for so long. The Empress didn't know how she spent the past few days in fear. The last time, Emperor Jiawen mentioned that he wanted to visit Rong Zhen, but he suddenly received a letter from Xing Luo, so he was delayed. Later on, she guessed that the contents of the letter were related to the marriage alliance. This was because Emperor Jiawen removed Rong Jin's house arrest not long after, and his attitude toward Rong Jin improved significantly. You're leaving tomorrow. Because of this, your father even specially asked Zhen Zhen to send you off, but I stopped him. Your father is busy with you and Situ Xingqian, so he can't care about Zhen Zhen for now. However, he already has suspicions and this matter can't be hidden for long. As long as you can settle the marriage alliance as soon as possible, your father will weigh the pros and cons and definitely won't do anything to us. Rong Jin nodded. I understand. Princely Mansion. Rong Xiu sat in the study room and was writing something. Yan Qing and Umo waited at the side. The octagonal glazed lamp's light shone on Rong Xiu's jade-like face. He looked down and his long eyelashes cast a faint shadow under his eyes. It was like a wisp of smoke floating across the bright moonlight, cold and noble. After some time he finally stopped writing. Yan Qing and Umo were both energized as they looked up. Rong Xiu picked up the thing he wrote and read it again before placing it on a clear, square jade stone in front of him. The moment the two came into contact, the square jade stone suddenly emitted a faint phosphorescent light. It turned out that the square jade stone was sunken in, and there was an extremely shallow pool of water inside. That thing melted when it touched the water, and it turned into rays of light on the water surface. After a while, the light disappeared and the water surface returned to normal. It also gradually seeped into the jade stone and disappeared. At first glance, it seemed to be an extremely normal jade stone, and there was nothing special about it. Rong Xiu pushed that thing forward and lightly said, Send it back. Send this back. Yan Qing stepped forward and carefully picked that thing up. But at this point he saw a golden light suddenly appear on Rong Xiu's long and white fingertips. He said in shock, Master, you're in charge. Master. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 354. Rong Xiu glanced at his fingertips, his gaze cold. In the next moment, that cluster of golden light instantly dissipated. The entire process was extremely fast. If not for Yan Qing and Umo standing nearby, they would have thought that what they saw just now was just an illusion. Rong Xiu leaned back in his chair, one hand supporting his forehead. There was a faint trace of fatigue between his eyebrows. You may leave. After the initial shock, Yenqing's expression became very serious. Master, in your current state, I'm afraid that you have to make a trip back as soon as possible. He had only left for a few days to retrieve this item, but his master had already developed to this point. Thinking about it carefully, ever since he started interacting with Chu Luiyue, his master had never returned. Rong Xiu closed his eyes and didn't say anything, but his meaning was very clear. Master. Yenqing wanted to persuade him again, but Yuemo couldn't help but cough, desperately signaling to Yenqing with his eyes. Yenqing looked back. Seeing him like this, he hesitated for a moment before respectfully retreating. Master, don't worry. I'll do it right away. With that, he left with the strange jade. Yuemo hurriedly said, It's already very late. Master, you should rest. I'll also take my leave first. Rong Xiu waved his hand. Yuemo hurriedly followed Yenqing out. As soon as Yuemo walked out, he saw Yenqing waiting for him outside. The two of them exchanged glances and didn't say anything. They just left together. The two of them walked side by side for quite a distance. When they were far away from Rong Xiu's study, Yenqing finally spoke with a cold face. Today's situation is definitely not the first time. Did you know about it before? Yuemo could only nod with a bitter face. A similar situation happened a few days ago. Then why didn't you persuade him? Don't you know how serious this matter is? If I didn't see it today, when would you have told me? Yenqing was usually very calm and indifferent. She rarely had any mood swings, let alone get angry. His reaction at this moment showed how big of an impact this matter had on him. Yuemo shivered unconsciously, feeling inexplicably guilty. I did try to persuade him. But look at Master, do you think I can persuade him? Yenqing's face was still cold. Then you should have told me earlier. What's the use of telling you? Yuemo fiercely rubbed his face. Do you think that Master will listen to what you say? Yenqing fell silent. They had followed Master for many years and understood Master's character the best. Since he refused to go back now, it was useless for anyone to say anything. It seems that the forceful summoning by Master had a huge impact. Yenqing murmured. If it wasn't for that incident, Master would have been able to hold on for a long time. But now, didn't Master ask you to retrieve this item because he's determined not to go back for a while? Yuemo patted his shoulder. Don't worry too much. Master knows what he's doing. Yenqing kept quiet for a while before asking, Did Master say when he's planning to go back? Yuemo looked troubled. It seems like he's planning to wait until Mu Qinghe leaves. I don't know what's wrong with this Mu Qinghe recently. He's been staying in the Imperial City, doing nothing and refusing to leave. No one knew what else he wanted to do, but no one dared to ask. Even Emperor Jiawen didn't dare to disturb him for no reason, let alone others. I think you should send this item back first. Don't delay the important matters. If anything happens to Master, I'm here. Don't worry. I'll inform you immediately if anything happens. Yenqing finally gave up after Yuemo repeatedly assured him and left with the jade. Yuemo looked at his departing back view, and a tinge of guilt appeared in his eyes. If Yenqing knew that Master's situation was worse than what he saw today, how would he feel? Now, I can only hope that Mu Qinghe leaves as soon as possible. And that person? Hurry back. In the library. Chu Luiyue looked at the empty fifth floor in front of her and knitted her brows. There's actually nothing here. Not to mention books, there's not even a bookshelf here. At a glance, the four white walls were empty. Chu Luiyue found it increasingly strange. That's not right. In any academy, there was no way that a place like the library pavilion would leave an entire floor devoid of content. She didn't give up as she walked forward and started to carefully check everything here. But no matter how hard she searched, she didn't find anything. She even knocked on the four walls, but it was still the same. After searching one round, she finally stopped. She held her chin with one hand and fell into deep thought. Previously, when she was preparing to leave on the fourth floor, she did feel 3 waves. Although each of the 3 waves was smaller than the previous one, there was no doubt that they were there. Then where did they come from? Chu Luiyue originally thought that even if there weren't as many books here as there were on the other floors, there should be something special. But she didn't expect that there was nothing here. Or perhaps she just hadn't found it yet. Chu Luiyue thought for a long time, but still couldn't find an answer. She simply sat on the ground and crossed her legs. Anyway, there was still 1 day left. She could wait here and see if the waves would appear again. Time slowly passed. But Chu Luiyue didn't see any signs of movement. Bored to death, she decided to silently recite the Jingshin finger again. Because when she came in, both parties had already agreed that she could borrow any book in the library, but every book had to be returned to its original position after reading it. Moreover, the books on each floor were not allowed to be taken to other floors. Therefore, Chu Luiyue could only rely on her own memory to recite the Jingshin finger. She held her breath and focused. In her mind, the Jingshin finger appeared clearly. Chu Luiyue started to recall the first move and tried to cultivate it. The force in her body surged towards her dantian. When it condensed into a ball, she controlled a strand of force and poured it into her right index finger. But before that strand of force reached her right index finger, it had already dissipated into the Yuan meridian. Chu Luiyue readjusted, mobilized an even smaller amount of force and tried again. It was still a failure. But Chu Luiyue wasn't discouraged. She continued to try again and again. The first step now was to control the force so that it could flow along the Yuan meridian from her dantian all the way to her right index finger. Just this point alone was very difficult. Because this required the cultivator to have a sufficiently strong Yuan meridian, it also required the cultivator to have exquisite control over the force. Chu Luiyue only wanted to try at first, but the more she tried, the more she realized that it was more difficult than she had imagined. Her competitive spirit was aroused. She actually tried it over 1,000 times. When the sun shone on the next morning, Chu Luiyue's right index finger was finally covered in a layer of faint silver. Before she could exclaim in surprise, she suddenly felt that her surroundings were bright. She subconsciously squinted her eyes and looked around. Then her eyes suddenly widened. Countless silver characters appeared on the walls around her. They were shining brightly. Digression: I'm sorry, I can't stand it anymore. Tomorrow I'll land at 6. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 355. Chu Luiyue looked at the scene in front of her in shock. The 5th floor was indeed not empty. To think that such a shocking secret was hidden in all directions. Chu Luiyue subconsciously wanted to walk forward. Suddenly, countless rays of light flew from all directions and gradually condensed in front of her. In a moment, 3 large silver words appeared in the air in front of her. Awakening God Technique. The 3 words were like flowing water, swaying gently and shining brilliantly, but with an unparalleled pressure. Chu Luiyue was shocked. This aura was very similar to Awakening God Finger, but it was several times stronger than Awakening God Finger. And this pressure was even more vast and boundless. Chu Luiyue's heart was beating wildly, as if it was being pulled by some mysterious force. She slowly stretched out her finger and gently tapped on the 3 large words. It was like a stone being thrown into a calm lake. The void in front of her suddenly rippled, with the 3 words as the center, spreading out in all directions. The ripples spread to the surrounding walls. Buzz. The subtle ripples came again. Chu Luiyue looked over. The words that appeared on the surrounding walls seemed to be affected as well. Like the stars in the dark night, they flickered and disappeared. Her heart suddenly trembled. This ripple was exactly the same as the one she felt on the 4th floor. In the next moment, Chu Luiyue suddenly felt an inexplicable feeling coming from her fingertips, all the way to the bottom of her heart. In an instant, she seemed to have an indescribable sense of connection with the entire space. She seemed to have sensed something, looked up to the left and carefully identified the words on the wall. Soon, she realized that the content on the wall was exactly the same as the Awakening God Finger she saw earlier. She immediately looked at the second wall beside her. Sure enough, the content on the wall was the same as the Awakening God Finger. But as she looked at it, Chu Luiyue realized that something was not right. The thing on the second wall had actually transformed the Awakening God Finger into a palm technique. And its power had also become stronger. Chu Luiyue closed his eyes and looked at it seriously again. He could basically confirm that the level of this palm technique was at the middle stage of the Earth stage. An absurd and bold idea suddenly appeared in Chu Luiyue's mind. She couldn't wait to look at the third wall. At this point he changed from a palm technique to a fist technique. More importantly, once this fist art was mastered, it was very likely that it would reach the upper level of the Earth rank. Chu Luiyue took a deep breath and tried his best to suppress his wildly beating heart as he looked at the last wall. Just like the 3 walls in front of him, there was also some glowing writing on it. However, after staring at it for a while, Chu Luiyue realized that he couldn't understand what it was. None of the words could be read smoothly and it looked very chaotic. Chu Luiyue looked at it for a long time, but still couldn't figure it out. However, this only made her even more excited. It was rumored that heaven-rank martial skills were different from ordinary martial skills that were recorded with pen and ink. The heaven-rank martial skills in this world were all obtained by powerful people who comprehended the heavenly Tao. If one wanted to cultivate a heaven-rank martial skill, they couldn't use their eyes to see it. Instead, they had to use their force to sense it. If a cultivator's realm wasn't enough, they wouldn't be able to touch it or even understand it. Just like this moment, Chu Luiyue had seen a heaven-rank martial skill once in her previous life, and it was on the day of her coming-of-age ceremony. It was left behind by the ancestors of the Tianling dynasty and had always been treasured by the royal family. Originally, after she ascended the throne, she could officially start trying to cultivate the heaven-rank martial skill, but she couldn't wait until that day. However, even though it had been a long time, she still clearly remembered the scene when she saw the heaven-rank martial skill. She remembered everything that had happened back then clearly. She could confirm that the content on the last wall was indeed a heaven-rank martial skill. Chu Luiyue's hands clenched into fists. The blood in her body seemed to be boiling, making her entire body seem to be burning. In fact, when she saw the content on the second wall, she guessed that the level of these things might be gradually increasing. The result was indeed so. There was even a heaven-rank martial skill. After the shock, Chu Luiyue calmed down and started to think. No wonder Elder Mo Tsang said that only the dean could enter the 5th level. There was such a shocking secret hidden here. Once people knew about it, it would attract countless powerful cultivators to fight for it. At that time, Taiyan Academy would definitely not be able to hold on. Even the entire country Xingluo would be in trouble. However, Chu Luiyue couldn't figure out why such a shocking existence would appear in this small country Xingluo's Taiyan Academy. She even suspected that the dean of Taiyan Academy didn't know what this thing was. If Cheng Han knew, why didn't he choose to cultivate it? Even if he didn't understand the heaven-rank martial skill now, the finger technique, fist technique, and palm technique in front of it were extremely powerful. If he didn't know, you owe me again. The legendary three-eyed eagle's voice suddenly sounded. Chu Luiyue was stunned for a moment before she reacted. That's right. The heaven-rank martial skills pressure was extremely strong. If it wasn't in the legendary three-eyed eagle's god territory, it would have caused a huge commotion. From this point of view, the legendary three-eyed eagle had indeed helped her a lot. Okay, I'll remember it for now. Chu Luiyue didn't mind and admitted it straightforwardly. The legendary three-eyed eagle was silent for a moment before it said coldly, "You're quite lucky." Chu Luiyue's lips curled up. Of course. How could it be just not bad? It was simply heaven-defying. This was a heaven-rank martial skill. Some people might not even see it in their entire lives. She had only come to the library to read, and she actually had such a fortuitous opportunity. Even Chu Luiyue couldn't help but sigh. This trip was really worth it. However, there was a very troublesome problem now. She didn't seem to have a way to take this God-stunning technique away. She had already memorized the God-stunning finger. The God-stunning palm and God-stunning fist were much more complicated, but she could completely memorize them as long as she read more. The most troublesome thing was the thing on the last wall. She realized that she couldn't remember the contents at all. The heaven-rank martial skill contained an extremely strong pressure. According to her current realm and strength, she couldn't comprehend it at all. Every time she finished reading it, it was as if there was a hand that forcefully erased those things from her mind. Moreover, after Chu Luiyue tried a few times, she felt a little tired. She knew that this was the result of her forceful actions, so she didn't continue. She turned her gaze back to the 3 big words in front of her. God-stunning technique, she muttered softly. She had to leave here today. She had to think of a way as soon as possible. She really couldn't give up on the heaven-rank martial skill in front of her. She looked at her hand and suddenly had a question. How did she summon this God-stunning technique just now? Suddenly, there was a fluctuation in her dantian. Chu Luiyue was slightly shocked. A water droplet appeared on her fingertip. That water droplet quickly changed, and then turned into a piece of transparent incomplete paper. The contents on the last wall were clearly reflected on it. Digression. A wave of action was about to come. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.